Madam Chairman of the Board, Marie Torniali,
Yes.
the meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Can we all just recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
Liberty and justice.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you could all mute your mics, because I believe is Tony on Florence? You're on
I
mute.
couldn't hear what you said. Please repeat.
Is the district attorney on? Isn't
I'm looking for her name right now. Madam District Attorney, are you on the recording at this point? There are several phone numbers under panelists. Can you acknowledge yourself?
Unmute.
Marie, I do not acknowledge that she's here at this point.
Okay, then we'll move forward to Board of Standards and Appeals, the application 2020.
Several phone numbers.
Can everybody mute themselves,
Can you
please?
acknowledge yourself? Madam Borough President. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. There's a problem with everybody's muting. She's here at this point.
Well, I think, can you mute yourselves? 2020. Can everybody mute themselves, please?
You are unmuted. Oh, come on.
Miss Marie, you are unmuted. You need to unmute yourself.
Is the presenter here? Florence with the Goldfish Swim School?
I don't see them arriving as of yet. We do have the person from the Census Bureau here if you'd like to go in that direction and start that way.
I'm present, Denise Vista with Amato Law Group. I wasn't able to hear the chair for a while. Apologies.
Okay, so go,
Beautiful.
please.
And Rob Weineman with Goldfish is also here as well. Good evening, everyone. My name is Denise Vista. I'm with the law firm of Amato Law Group. We're here tonight in connection with Goldfish Swim School's special permit application to the Board of Standards and Appeals. They're seeking a special permit pursuant to section 7336 for the swim school to be located at 33-12 36th Avenue in Astoria. The property is located on the southwest corner of 36th Avenue and 34th Street, and it is zoned M1-1. Currently, the property is improved with a vacant two-story building that some of you may recall was formerly utilized as a nightclub. The property owner has filed for and obtained work permits for exterior renovations, which are slowly getting back underway, as well as interior renovations for the swim school. The area surrounding the subject property is a mixed use. There's some light manufacturing, commercial retail, some multifamily dwellings, and some educational uses. And the swim school will be located within the building. It will consist of an approximately 1,781 square foot swimming pool. There'll be drying areas, rinsing areas. There'll be a spectator area. I see that Florence is.
Yes, I'm opening it right now.
Yeah, thank you. So once she brings that up, you'll have an idea of the floor plan. for the school. But so while we're waiting for that to come up, I can just tell you a little bit about Goldfish. So they specialize in swim instruction for infants, toddlers, and children from basically the ages of 4 months, 12 years old. The most popular age group is between 4 and 6 years old. The class ratio is 4 students to 1 instructor, although semi-private and private lessons are available. There are always 3 lifeguards on duty when the children are in the pool. And for those of you who have videoed in, Florence, if you could maybe just go back to the floor plan on the second slide. Thank you. You can get an idea of the layout. So you see the pool, those small squares just to the south of the pool is the viewing area for the parents and the spectators. There is the drying area, the changing huts for the children to change after the lessons. And maybe if you just want to go to the photos then. So you get a better idea of what the swim school will look like. These photos were taken
Or another, it said that I was muted.
at an existing swim school in Farmingdale on Long Island.
Because it would light up usually when I speak.
Did they acknowledge you?
I'm sorry. So getting back to the swim school. So as I said, there'll be 4 instructors, 4 students to 1 instructor. There's always lifeguards on duty, as you can imagine. That's very important. And with that, so the swim school that you're looking at here, like I said, is in Farmingdale on Long Island. There is a second one in Garden City on Long Island as well. And then there are 2 approved schools in the city, one in the Gowanus section, of Brooklyn, and the second that we just received approval for on Union Turnpike in Glen Oaks. Now, we received approval from the BSA in 2019. So with that, I just wanted to give a short presentation and we'll open it up to any questions that you may have.
Please mute.
Somebody's unmuted.
George, Alexia, can you mute yourself, please?
Yes,
Thank you so much.
I try to.
Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Elizabeth Evian. Elizabeth, did you have any questions?
No, I have no questions. If there are any questions, I can let you know what the committee had discussed, unless you want to go to questions.
There we go.
I'm going to ask any board member have a question on this item.
I have a question.
See the way she's outlined that?
Who is that, please?
Okay, now it's doing it on mine.
Is that Daniel Alberti?
Daniel, yes.
Okay, Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to know, in hours when it's not being used by the children, will it be available for adults? And the other part of the question is, do you have any accessibility for wheelchair users to use that pool, whether they be children or adults?
We will have Rob Weineman with Goldfish respond to those questions. Rob, I believe you're on the.
I am. I'm here, Denise. Thank you. Yes, with respect to the first portion, the first question you asked, no, we are specifically engaged in teaching young children how to swim. The pool is purpose-built for that endeavor, and we do not offer any type of adult swim classes. Just so you understand, the pool is 4 feet at its deepest point. It tapers to about 3 feet 10 inches on either end. We keep the pool water temperature at about 88 degrees and the ambient air temperature is at about 90. So we're trying to provide a nice environment for young children and teaching them this life skill. And then as it relates to the pool being handicap accessible, yes, I believe on the floor plan, if you go back and look, you will see a notation, but code does require that we have an ADA lift available for use for anybody who is in need of such equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Florence, Maria, I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Is the water
ozone, chlorinated, salt water? What's the composition? How is it going to get discharged? And also, what about venting? Do you have venting available?
So I'll take the first part of the question. It's a typical chlorinated pool. We believe that to be the safest and most sanitary. We do utilize a self-generating chlorination system, but essentially it's what you're used to and what's been around for a long period of time. And then as it relates to ventilation, the pool area itself is governed by a dehumidification unit. And that dehumidification unit obviously allows us to discharge and vent and circulate with the open air, just as the customer area will be with respect to the rooftop units serving that.
Thank you.
Question, Marie?
Go ahead.
Dominic? Hey, sir, Robert? Dan's question had a two-part about handicapped accessibility, and I didn't hear the answer to that.
Yes, it is handicap accessible. Pursuant to code, we're required to provide a lift, an ADA lift, which will allow anybody who needs that to have access to the pool.
And will that, so then the entrance is code compliant for a new use, right?
Yes, so in actuality, the envelope of the building is being renovated currently by the landlord. And as a part of that renovation, they will be providing an ADA accessible handicap ramp along 34th Street, which is a main entrance to the swim school.
And ADA bathrooms and all the ADA requirements as if it was a new use.
Correct, it has to be because it's a new build. That is correct, though. Everything will be ADA compliant, all bathrooms, changing huts, etc.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? Okay, Elizabeth, you will do the recommendation at the land use committee report, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I understand DA Katz is on the line.
Good evening, everyone.
And there she is. Welcome.
Good evening, Marie. Nice to see you. Hello, Florence. How are you? It's good to see all of you. I came on just to see all of your living rooms. That's the only reason I came on. So I could see your kitchens, your living rooms. It is good to see everyone. First of all, let me thank the leadership for the work that it does. Florence and Marie for guiding so many and all the work that you're doing. It is amazing to me that there's COVID. There is all the responsibilities of taking care of our relatives. Hold on one second. Guys, give me a second, okay? Thank you. There's responsibilities for having children at home while doing our jobs, taking care of our parents, taking care of ourselves, homeschooling, which anyone who is homeschooling, I'm with you right there. It is one of the most arduous part of this process, but all of you continue to do the work on Community Board 1. You're still zooming in. You're still doing the work that needs to be done. You're still doing your voting. You're still working for the people of Queens County. I think it is remarkable, and I thank you for your true dedication. I'm now the district attorney now about 5.5 months. Since I have been the district attorney, we've had the bail laws changed twice. We've had the discovery laws changed twice. We've gone through a pandemic. We're still going through it. We have a national crisis when it comes to equality across the country, which I have joined in full force. And we are here today trying to reopen the district attorney's office and moving on. So it has been quite an amazing time for us. So first of all, I welcome everyone to please follow my district attorney accounts on Facebook, on Twitter. You will see my speaking out on George Floyd, on the police officers from Minneapolis, on the equity that needs to enter our system and all the work that we are doing on it. I've been very outspoken about it, and I look forward to people actually viewing it and following the page so you can keep up to date. But in the meantime, during all of this that is happening, we have 700 employees at the DA's office, 320 lawyers. and the rest as support in various capacities, mostly paralegals and TPAs. We have formed many bureaus for the protection of the people of Queens County. One of the first things I formed is the Conviction Integrity Unit. It already has over 40 cases that it is reviewing to see whether we have innocent people in jail, to make sure that we are reviewing the cases with a fresh eye. I hired a counselor, an attorney from the Innocence Project to make sure that that bureau is run properly. We have also started the Cold Case Bureau, because as you find people were innocent, they are now cold cases. And so sometimes that works together, sometimes it doesn't. You'll see every week or so on my Twitter account, it asks you as people who are following it, whether you know anything about the cold case that we're investigating. And it's quite interesting to see. Some of them are from the 80s, some of them are from the 90s. And so please take a look at that. We've also formed the Housing and Worker Protection Bureau. That bureau is specifically to protect workers. It's specifically to protect those either in the workplace, documented or undocumented, who feel that they need protection or feel that there's no other way to report any wrongdoing. And so we are looking forward to that bureau growing. It also goes down to work sites, by the way. So if you're working on a work site and there's a death on that work site, we send down an ADA, an investigator that has experience in engineering or construction or management, so that we're not totally relying on the site inspector for the information. We've also formed bureaus of hate crimes, and the Bureau of Hate Crime now has its own leader, its own bureau chief. It used to share a bureau with another unit. It now has its own bureau to try to go after those that prey upon us for who we are, who we love, where we come from, what religion we practice, all that comes with it. And they are in a very aggressive bureau. And so please, if you know anybody or you have any hate crimes, please feel free to report them. At the same time, we have arraignments. We have everything that is going. We are doing it all virtually right now. The only thing that happens on site every single day is arraignments. And most of the executive staff and chiefs are on site. But we do the arraignments on site because if anything goes wrong, we want to make sure that people's rights to an arraignment within 24 hours are never violated. And if the ADAs are at home, we can't do that. So we do it on site. I just would like to point out a few things if I can. Domestic violence, we believe, is underreported to a very large extent. We believe that people are trapped in their homes. There are no police that are stopping by the homes, which is normally the case. So if you had reported a domestic violence occurrence, someone was prosecuted for it, we know that you're a victim. Normally the police, they would come by your house, but now with the pandemic, that's not happening. And they're doing everything they possibly can, I believe that, for the safety of people. But if you're not in a house seeing the children, seeing the victims, it's hard to sometimes catch it. So please check on your loved ones. Also check on those that are alone during this pandemic. It's very difficult when you are alone. And you know, there's no family with you. I'm very honored and I'm very privileged to have my two children with me every day, but not everybody has that. So please check on them. And at the end of the day, you know, we are here for you still. Just because I'm in another office, it's a different type of job. We are still here for the community and working with the community in different ways. I am starting to form the pretrial diversion programs. They got a little waylaid during the pandemic. We're working on making it so that you don't have to plead guilty for drug rehab or for mental health illness, or if you're a veteran and you go to the Veterans Court, that you don't have to plead guilty to get there. And so all these things are happening at the same time. So please, you know, I just want to thank everyone for the work that they have been doing. I do want to encourage everyone to vote, no matter who you're voting for. I don't care. I just want you to vote. You know, we are worried about the turnout this year. We have different types of voting for the first time, early voting and absentee voting. So please make sure you do that. And I'm sure you've heard from every single elected official to please fill out the census. It's urgent that you do that. It is just so important for us to get the funds we need for education, but that's not why you had me on the call. So I'm just going to say thank you for all the work that you are doing. And please, we are here. Follow us on Queens DA Cats on Facebook, Twitter, and keep in touch with us if you need us. We're here. I'm happy to answer questions if you had any. Anything you want me to.
You'll take
District
questions?
Attorney Katz, I'm sorry, Marie. District Attorney Katz, well, first off, congratulations. I haven't seen you since you moved into your new office at home, as it were, but I haven't seen you. I'm congratulating you on your victory. I would just like to throw in that the jury duty experience is something that is commonly held in Queens as being one of the most miserable things that can happen to you. And my own experience of standing in front of Borough Hall in the rain for more than an hour at 7 o'clock in the morning is something that I can tell you about in person. I won't waste everyone else's time, but I would ask you to pay some mind to when jury duty starts back up again, to keep social distancing, COVID in mind, and also to try and figure out a smoother system than the one we currently have.
I appreciate the thoughts. I will talk to the clerk about it as well. The county clerk as well, but thank you. And we are anxious for juries to start up. Grand juries.
I can't hear you. You cut out.
Did you mute everybody?
There we go. For those, thank you for letting me know. I will talk to the clerk, the county clerk as well. We control a lot about juries and grand juries, but not everything. So we'll try to work together to make it a better experience. I'm anxious for grand juries to start again. There are people who are having preliminary hearings right now instead of grand juries. Grand juries are absolutely the better process, and the right of having a grand jury exists. So we are looking forward to them starting again, and I will keep it in mind.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to ask the DA a question?
You have questions in chat, Marie. Please look at your chat box.
I'm looking also. All right.
Evie
So
Katsopoulos and Kate and Kathleen have questions, Marie.
I'm asking Evie for her question, Florence. Evie, are you there?
I think Kathleen was before me, though. Kathleen was before me.
Okay, can you hear me?
Evie, you're mute.
No one unmute.
No, Kathleen is speaking. Marie.
George Alexiou, can you mute your computer, please? George Alexiou?
Yeah, I think I'm all right, no?
No, you have to mute. You're not on mute.
Sure, we can hear the background, George.
Okay, Evie, did you have a question for the DA?
I do, yeah. Kathleen was before me, but I guess I'll go and maybe she can go after me. Okay, great. So, a few months ago, it was reported that the 114th precinct had the highest stop and frisk rates in Queens. And I'm just wondering whether or not there have been any conversations with them about that, since stop and frisk is illegal. So I'm just wanted your take on that.
So we haven't had reports of stop and frisk there. What we've had is reports of COVID violations. So what was happening is people were getting arrested or DAT for not social distancing. I said I refuse to prosecute for that. And so they became much less very quickly, since I was not going to write them up and I was not going to prosecute them. And then we had the curfew, which also I said, you don't want that being used as an excuse for stop and frisk. So I will not prosecute for curfew violations. So that came into the office also. They were 343, they were dismissed. If that was the only thing we were prosecuting for, we were done with that. It wasn't going to happen. Protesting, I always say, people say to me, was there any arrest for protesting? Protesting is a constitutional right. You don't need to give anyone permission to protest. And we had 2 arrests that came out from the protests, which we also dismissed. So at the end of the day, I'm happy to talk to the 114th and see if there was any reports that we should know about, but that's how we handled it. So we handled it in a way that said we weren't prosecuting Normally when you have stop and frisk, they use it as an excuse, right? They use something else as an excuse. And since I said I wasn't going to prosecute those other things, we've had less and less.
Right. Oh, I thank you for that. I was actually referring to pre-COVID, the report that came out pre-COVID about the 114th having the highest stop and frisk rates.
And do you know where that report was?
I can,
This a couple months ago, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think
That
it
was
was
in
maybe in
February.
February that it came out. So
I
I'll
will look
DM you
back
on
and see
Twitter.
whether it's still, and I'll also see whether it's still happening, right? Also, we can look back at the incidents back then, but we can also, you know, keep a watchful eye on what's going on right now too. Both.
And Kathleen Warnock, you had a question?
Yes, actually, first, we did hear that you might have contracted the virus, and I hope that you're over it and that you're not having any lingering effects.
I'm okay. Thank you very much. Me and my
Okay,
kids. Thanks.
that's good to hear. Secondly, when people actually are arrested and brought in, can you tell us what kind of social distancing and sanitation procedures are being used as they're processed and if they're being held, you know, for a hearing or something like that? Because we do know that right now the COVID spread is very dangerous in places where people are held in close confinement.
Sure. So, you know, the interesting thing about running many offices in my life and in my past life is that we actually saw this coming very early. So we started realizing that grand jurors were not showing up a lot earlier than a lot of people realized it. And so we started taking steps to make sure that if we had to go virtual to keep everyone safe, including defendants, that we could do it almost immediately. So we got virtual for everybody, the ADAs, the defense counsel, the defendant, and the judge were all virtual. And what would happen in processing is if they showed symptoms of COVID, they were normally processed through Rikers, if they had to be not Rikers, Red Hook, if they had to be processed at all, or Manhattan, if they showed symptoms of COVID. If they did not show symptoms of COVID, they were normally in processing on their own with social distancing, and then transferred to Rikers. I will tell you that after the COVID started, we let out about 200 people from Rikers. So we did about 30 on our own the first few days with the defense counsel, where we just decided and made a decision that someone who was doing a city sentence at Rikers, so if they were sentenced to 6 months and they did 5 months, you know, and it wasn't violent crimes or sexual abuse crimes, that we did time served so that they could social distance better. And then there was about 120 or so that were parole violators. And if they weren't offenses that we would prosecute for or put bail on, we said we have no objection to letting them out. So I think with all of that happening, we have done our best to social distance. I think the correction officers, OCA, the Office of Corrections Administration, Court Administration, did their best as well. But we were lucky that we saw it coming, so we were able to set it up.
Thank you. I think we have one. Dan Aliberti, did you have a question?
Madam Chair, a caller
I have
one.
a question.
Yes, okay, that's caller one. Go ahead. Who has a question? Rudy?
Yes, I have a question
Hey, Rudy.
for the
Mr. Sacchese, how are you?
How are you doing? We
I'm
appreciate
doing all right,
everything.
Rudy.
Can
Good.
you hear me? Hello?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, Rudy.
Dan Aliberti here. Can you hear me?
Can you wait one moment, please, Dan? Rudy is speaking right now. 1 second.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We appreciate everything is which you do. Now, everything is changing under law.
I can't
What
hear
do you
him.
think is about the safety of the people, the crime, and everything else is going to happen? I think we're going to have a handful of them to deal with this. And I think is going to be a change on the safety of the people. What do you think about that?
Did someone else hear it maybe so better? I didn't really hear everything. Were you, Rudy, were you asking about how I think
but
the future of law
changes,
enforcement
all
is?
these
Yeah.
changes for the police department is going on. You know, state, the city, and and government too. And what is going to be the effect on the safety over the people, all this change? I think, you're going to have a big jobs to do.
I think it is a big job, but I think it's a big job for this country. I mean, there's a reason there was such anger in the streets of the United States. I mean, so immediately with George Floyd, I think it brought out a lot of past inequities in the system. And I've been very clear about it when I rallied a few times, and went out. But also we put our money where our mouth is by not prosecuting for a lot of things that I thought shouldn't be prosecuted on lower level crimes. I think there's going to be differences, and I think those differences are good. I think at the end of the day, though, equity in the system doesn't mean it's less safe. Equity in the system actually means it's more safe, to make sure that we are utilizing resources we have to get younger people out of the system, to make sure that we are training police officers to approach people in a better manner, to make sure that across the country they realize the system hasn't been very fair, and it's been a lot of inequities across the board. And I think the one thing that is amazing about all these protests that happen is, number one, I think you're going to see a lot of good changes in the system, while still making sure we're prosecuting. We have a lot of shootings that are happening in the borough of Queens County. Our numbers, especially in Queens South, have risen. We need to make sure that we keep our streets safe. But at the end of the day, I would argue that trying to get people out of the system and trying to do pretrial diversions and teaching and cure violence and drug rehabilitation and all of that, when we can help, is probably going to keep people safer than they ever did before.
Thank
I have
you.
a question.
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
All right, Marie, I got time for two more. I'm just letting you know. I'm expected at another community board in a few minutes.
Okay.
Dan
2 minutes ago,
Alberti is
actually.
still here.
Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the Hate Crimes Bureau. And does the Hate Crimes Bureau deal with issues relating to crimes perpetrated against people with disabilities? And if it does, how are you outreaching to organizations for people with disabilities to let them know that?
I think we should do that more. So whether or not something's a hate crime is whether or not they attack you because of your disability. And I think, look, at the end of the day, something may not be a hate crime, or it is, but we should be prosecuting for those that are targeting those that are disabled. So I'd love to work with you on that, and on reaching out to different organizations. I think that's a great idea.
May I contact you on the issue?
Yep. So let me give you my direct email. It goes right to my phone. Is cats@queensda.org.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Phone.
Okay, this is, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, this is Richard Kazami. How you doing, Melinda?
I am well, Richard. How are you?
Good, very good. One question. What's the DA's position on the quality of life issues, particularly having to do with outdoor dining and alcohol being served outside and some of the rowdyism that we've been seeing? Also, I'd like your take on why it seems many of the demonstrations that have been happening in Queens have been pretty violence-free compared to the other boroughs, and what do you attribute that to?
I don't know what I attribute it to. I can only say this to you. Between me and the borough president, and the police and the Cure Violence groups and the protesters, we've been in contact a lot. And so whether that helps at the end of the day or not, I don't really know. But I do know that when we had issues, we were able to call up people straight away and say, what's going on out there and how can we help? And I do think that camaraderie is somewhat helpful at the end of the day. But I can't tell you that's the reason. I can only tell you that it was much more safe here. Protesting was active, and thousands of people in Queens County were protesting. But you're right, we didn't have the looting. We didn't have the arrests for protesting. Some of it may be that I refused to prosecute some of that. And maybe, it calmed things down a little bit, but I don't know the answer. But I think it says a lot for our communities. I will tell you that I have not gotten any cases on outside dining and all of that. I just haven't gotten any cases on it. I can't see a world in which that would be a priority for me to prosecute. But I do think in neighborhoods, they also can't disrupt communities. And so I think it's a balancing act, and I'd have to look at each case that came to us.
Okay, thank you.
We just haven't had it.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
DA Katz, the last question comes from the public. Does the DA have any plans in targeting placard abuse or ADA violations by the 114 and 108 precincts?
ADA violations, it would not, I believe, come under my purview, but we are more than happy to help look into it. Yeah, I've never been asked that question about ADA violations in a building, in a city building. It would most likely be the Department of Buildings that should be notified on any of those violations.
Federal too.
They're considering this placard abuse by the 114 and 108 precincts.
I'd have to look at the cases. I have no idea. I think, look, at the end of the day, the problem really isn't if a police officer has a placard or someone has a placard, they're only allowed to use it in certain locations. If they're not doing that, we might be able to be helpful in getting them moved and making sure that they are following the rules. So I'd be happy to try and help. Someone that has individual issues like that, please email us. We're happy to help as long as we can, and we'll work on it together.
Okay, you gave us kindly your email address. So anybody with any further questions, I'm sure will email you. So thanks for the time and come back again.
And Marie,
email
just so
address one
you-
more time.
Marie, yeah, I will. But Marie, just so you know, in Florence, there will be someone at your community board from the DA's office every month. So we will now have a representative there to take back any constituent issues or anything that we can be helpful with, or even if you just need information on a case or something like that, we're happy to help within the purview of how we can. It's cats@queensda.org.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
You too.
Right. Next up is project manager for the bike unit of the Department of Transportation, Miss Eileen Bhatti. Are you here, Eileen?
Yes, I'm here. I'll set up the screen.
Also, hi, this is Helen. Sorry, just a point of order. There's somebody posting in the chat box as me, but it's not me. It's very helpful information, but I'm not posting it.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Helen. Okay, I'm sorry. And Ms. Bhatti will be presenting the Crescent Street protected bike lanes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you all see the screen? Is that working well?
Yes.
Great. Thanks, everyone. We're happy to be here tonight to share our proposal for the Crescent Street protected bike lanes. My name is Eileen Bhatti. I'm a project manager with the bicycle unit. Also with me tonight is our deputy director of the bike program, Sean Macias, as well as representatives from the Queensborough Commissioner's Office. So this presentation has a lot of detail. It should take about 20 minutes. I'd like to hold our questions until the end. We're going to share some of the background on why we're proposing this route and some of the details on what the project looks like, how it would work. So hopefully a lot of these slides answer your questions, but I can always flip back to them afterwards to further clarify. So over the last few years, we've seen a growing interest in cycling in Astoria and improving bike access throughout the area. Starting in the summer of 2017 with the introduction of City Bike, we saw a lot of new people riding. And in the first full summer of City Bike being in place, 2018, there was a tremendous amount of ridership from that system. We've continued to hear some interest and growing interest in connecting cyclists to the various bridges throughout the neighborhood and out of the neighborhood, particularly the RFK Triborough Bridge and the Queensborough Bridge. Many of you may have already been aware of this plan, but last summer DOT released a plan called the Green Wave, a plan for cycling in New York City. And although this is a conceptual level map on the screen that's included in the plan, it does include a protected bike lane that runs north-south in Astoria. And so overall, this plan calls for building out a connected network throughout all 5 boroughs to link neighborhoods together. And so we are here to make good on that commitment to bring a protected bike lane to Astoria. So when we look at protected bike lanes, we've gathered data over the years to show that there is significant injury reduction across all user groups. That's people driving, people walking, and people biking. And that protected bike lanes are where we have the data to demonstrate this change. But overall, there's a 15% drop in crashes with injuries for all those user groups. And when we look just at the pedestrian crash data, that reduction is even larger. So it makes a big difference for people driving, walking, and biking, not just cyclists. And the photo here on this slide shows a bit about why that's the case. Protected bike lanes can help to calm traffic, shorten the crossing distance for pedestrians, and calm the turning vehicles with some of those paint and markings that you see with the islands. So this map shows the existing bicycle network in Astoria. What you see here on the map, the blue lines are the standard or conventional lanes. Those are just the striped bike lanes that run next to the travel lane. The pink lines are the shared lanes or sharrows, which are helpful for connecting different bicycle routes together. And the dark green lines are the protected bike lanes. Those run mostly along the waterfront, along the west side of the neighborhood, through Astoria Park, and also the northern edge of the neighborhood on 20th Avenue, and down at Hoyt Avenue North. And so the neighborhood is challenging to navigate as a cyclist. There are some streets that don't continue all the way through, some destinations that are just tough to get to. So our next step in building out the network is bringing a protected bike lane to the middle of the neighborhood, and also building out some additional connections so people can reach that protected lane. To start thinking holistically about how to do this, we started a workshop process in February of this year. And we hosted this to gather feedback about the routes and designs and various destinations that people wanted to connect to. Prior to the workshop, we conducted a pre-meeting to speak with community board leadership, as well as some representatives from elected officials. The workshop included different exercises with maps for participants to jot down their ideas, show different routes that they're interested in. We also talked through a lot of photo examples of other projects to basically talk through what was possible to bring to Astoria. And so the workshop was heavily attended. We had more than 120 people attend this workshop in February. Vast majority were residents of the district. And some of the themes that we heard from participants were an overwhelming support for a bike lane that connected the RFK and Queensboro Bridge together, this bridge-to-bridge connection, specifically on Crescent Street. We also heard a general preference for protected bike lanes wherever feasible, instead of standard bike lanes. We heard an interest in more east-west routes in addition to north-south routes. And in terms of design, we also heard of that there was a desire to see intersections improved so that there's better visibility between people driving and cyclists and pedestrians. A number of elected officials have shared their support of a Crescent Street path linking these bridges. And another theme that we heard at the workshop was Mount Sinai Hospital, which is on Crescent Street. There were a lot of questions about how this would work in front of their building. And so we're continuing to meet with them and discuss how the design would function at their location. We've spoken with them since February several times. So also at the workshop, in addition to this broad overview of where people wanted to connect to and what these routes would be, we talked about 2 different design concepts for a north-south protected bike lane. The first one is Crescent Street, number 1 on the map, linking the two bridges together. The second concept was 31st Street under the NW elevated tracks. We're presenting the Crescent Street proposal tonight. Some of the reasons why are that this is a simpler, more standard design that we can implement on a quicker time frame. It's less resource intensive, whereas 31st Street involves significant concrete construction for things like bus boarding islands. Also, Crescent Street is something that's been in the public eye for a number of years. We've heard a lot of interest in this route. People have been talking about it for quite a while, and it's widely supported by advocates as well as area elected officials. So this map shows how a conventional bike route network and a protected lane along Crescent Street would fit together. So at the workshop, in addition to speaking about protected bike lanes, we also shared plans for an expansion of the conventional and shared bike lane network. So what you see, the thin purple lines that are dashed demonstrate where those connections would be. We have that information available online on the workshop presentation, and I also have that tonight if there's any questions on any of those routes. Those are the simple bike lanes that do not change the travel lanes or the parking lanes. They're just very straightforward. And this would complement a Crescent Street protected path. If you're riding north on Crescent Street, cyclists can continue on to the RFK Bridge, bringing you to Randall's Island and continuing on to the Bronx. If you're riding south on Crescent Street, it links you directly to the Queensboro Bridge, which is the main access point into Manhattan for cyclists in this area. So recently, DOT has been introducing temporary bicycle routes throughout different neighborhoods in the city to provide quick, short-term transportation options for this time when it's challenging for some people to travel by subway and bus when those options are limited. And we do expect to see more people continuing to ride as this goes on. It allows for people to social distance. There's also been a tremendous amount of deliveries people are receiving. So bike lanes help facilitate those as well. Currently, this is a work in progress. We had started installing this between Queens Plaza North to 34th Avenue. This involves barrels and signs. It's very temporary. We're continuing to work on some adjustments that we can bring, more signs, hopefully some temporary markings to really clarify to drivers and to cyclists how this is supposed to work. But as I mentioned, it's challenging. The barrels can move. So we have limited staffing, but we're getting people out there to adjust the barrels, move them back into place, hang signs. And so the temporary design is actually somewhat similar to the standard design I'll share next of what our permanent proposal is. Essentially, it involves either repurposing a parking lane or a travel lane into the two-way bike lane. And so as I mentioned so far, the barrel lane is in place between Queens Plaza North to 34th Avenue. The first block, we use the additional travel lane on the east side that's repurposed into the bike lane. And then the majority of the project is the green line on the map from 38th up to 34th Avenue, where the parking lane has shifted off from the curb in place of that second travel lane. So the bike lane is separated from the travel lane by that, what we call a floating parking lane. And so to get into our standard proposal for the design following the temporary route, Crescent Street is a commercial and residential corridor. Some of the challenges along this corridor include the lack of a dedicated space for cyclists, especially on the portions where we haven't been introducing the temporary lanes yet. It's not clear where people should be riding without the markings. And so on the blocks that are wider, as you see in the photo on the left, this is a wide roadway with 2 lanes, 2 travel lanes and 2 parking lanes. And all that extra space really allows for vehicles to pick up speed, creating an unsafe condition for cyclists and for other road users. The photo on the right shows some of the more narrow blocks. And in those locations, there's limited width and it's quite uncomfortable for a cyclist or a vehicle to pass one another as the space is very constrained. So the project route of Crescent Street is located in a Vision Zero priority corridor, which means that it has a relatively higher rate of crashes involving pedestrians. And so this is a high crash corridor with 9 people killed or severely injured over a 5-year period. The chart in gray shows the different user groups, pedestrians, cyclists, people traveling in cars. And what you can see here is that all different types of users are experiencing injuries along Crescent Street. And as I mentioned earlier, these complete street redesigns really bring the ability and the potential to reduce those crash rates. We have the data to prove that these types of designs that we're proposing tonight and that we've installed previously over the years have that trend of 15% injury reduction. So the majority of our project proposal includes a parking protected bike lane. And before we show the cross sections for this, I'd like to explain what that involves. So these 2 photos generally show that the parking protected bike lane includes a bike lane running along the curb. This specifically is a 2-way bike lane, 1 in each direction. It then is separated from the moving vehicles by a painted buffer and a row of parked cars. So rather than a barrier, it's a row of parked cars that provides the separation from the moving travel lane. This design has a number of benefits. It can calm traffic by using a more standard travel lane width for drivers. It makes it more predictable where pedestrians and drivers can expect to see the cyclists because they have a designated space in the roadway. And this is a more user-friendly design for people of all ages and abilities. So it has that ability to invite new cyclists. It's more encouraging for people to get out for recreation, but importantly, it's also it's a commuting route. So it creates a new transportation connection at a really important time, as I mentioned earlier, that we expect to see a lot more people starting to ride as their main transportation choice. So going through the different project segments, we'll go block by block. These sections are broken down based on the existing conditions of the street. So we're going to start at the southern end and we'll work our way toward the north. So the first segment is 2 blocks between Queens Plaza North and 40th Avenue on Crescent Street. These each have a different design. Currently, Queens Plaza North from 41st Avenue, that very first block after the Queensboro Bridge or leading to the Queensboro Bridge, has 3 travel lanes, 2 lanes that go straight onto the bridge and 1 lane that turns right onto Queens Plaza North. I should mention that in developing this proposal, we've conducted traffic analysis, taking into account the traffic volumes, the turning movements, the signals, to ensure that this design is something compatible with those volumes. And what we saw during that traffic modeling is that at this location at Queens Plaza North, the right turns are very light. So that right turn lane is very lightly used. So the proposed condition repurposes 1 travel lane on the east curb into the 2-way bike lane, and then it combines the other lanes together into 2. So people can still turn right onto Queens Plaza North. It's just a combined through and right turn. What this does is also cleans up the intersection. This is a very challenging location, as many of you know. A lot of times people will use that 3rd right turn lane to kind of jump ahead of the other cars, and then there are 3 lanes merging together into the intersection. So by simplifying it and bringing it down to 2 lanes, it actually cleans up that interaction and should reduce some delay there. The next block between 41st Avenue to 40th Avenue currently has 1 travel lane and parking along the west curb. So in order to provide some additional capacity and take off some of the pressure in case there are backups leading toward the bridge, we are introducing a 2nd lane in the proposed condition along the west curb. So with these 2 blocks combined in the proposed condition, it actually creates more consistency from block to block. Both blocks have 2 travel lanes as well as the bike lane. And this should also take some pressure off of what some drivers do when they block the box and things like that. The next section is between 40th Avenue to 38th Avenue, and also at the northern end of the project from Newtown Avenue to Hoyt Avenue North. Currently, there is 1 travel lane with a parking lane on each curb. our proposed condition repurposes the parking lane on the east curb to the two-way bike path. The photo on the upper right shows an example of the existing conditions. It's quite narrow for cyclists traveling in two directions with the parking on both sides. So the proposed condition would mirror the image that you see on the lower right. What this uses here is a painted buffer and flexible delineators to separate the vehicles from the bike lane. And with the parking along the other curb, the flexible delineators here actually allow for emergency access for emergency vehicles if there is a need to pass them, since there's only one travel lane. The next segment is the largest portion of this project, and this is that parking protected bike lane design we talked about earlier. This is between 38th Avenue to 30th Avenue, where there are two travel lanes, as well as parking on the east curb and the west curb. The proposed design repurposes the second travel lane along the east curb into what we call floating parking lane. And that is very similar to what you see in the photo on the lower right, where there's still loading and parking on the east curb, but it's pushed off from the curb. And this is also what we've been already introducing with the temporary bike lanes with the barrels. So we've been able to take a look at some of the interaction of how that's working. As I mentioned earlier, we did look at the traffic volumes and the turning movements. And so at key locations where we saw that there is more traffic along this stretch, we are planning to introduce some right turn lanes leading up to the intersections, as well as some rush hour regulations on the west side to alleviate places that have a little bit more traffic. But generally, this is the cross section that applies to that whole segment. The next section, the last section, is between 30th Avenue to Newtown Avenue. This is a short 3-block segment that is a two-way street. It's the only portion of Crescent Street that's two-way, so it's in a bit of an anomaly. When we looked at the traffic data, we saw that very few people were traveling north as opposed to the vehicles traveling south. Most of the traffic was southbound, and there were very few vehicles turning right off of 30th Avenue to go north. Additionally, there are other streets directly to the east and west of Crescent Street that allow for northbound access, so there are still options for circulation throughout the neighborhood. The proposed condition mirrors the same section that we previously just shared. It's that parking protected design of parking on the west curb, floating parking on the east curb, with a single travel lane in the middle. And so this creates consistency throughout Crescent Street. And we basically repurposed the northbound lane into the floating parking lane. At Mount Sinai Hospital, they're located at 30th Avenue and Crescent Street. So they do have an entrance onto Crescent Street as well as 30th Avenue and some loading in the rear. Since they have some unique loading needs, we've proposed some special markings that would accommodate their needs. So throughout the city, when we've installed protected bike lanes at unique locations such as hospitals, health centers, schools, hotels that have some different unloading and loading needs for passengers, we use special markings. So typically the bike lane is green. So one of the things that we propose here that's different is that we don't use green paint. It's something that alerts cyclists that something different is coming up. We also paint a wider space than the buffer. So we shrink the bike lane a little bit, we shrink the parking lane a little bit, we provide a wide area where people can exit their vehicles in that tan paint that you see in the photos and in the cross section. Some of the other warning markings for cyclists include chevrons, crosswalks, yield teeth, and importantly, painted rumble strips. This is something we've used at a lot of locations, that it's a few layers of paint and it's several stripes. And so when a cyclist rides over it, they can feel several bumps and it alerts them that something is changing ahead that they need to pay attention to. So in our conversations with Mount Sinai, we're working through some of the finer details on some regulation updates and some design updates to this that will meet their needs and ensure they can continue their operations optimally. So when redesigning the street to include the parking protected bike lane, it allows for an opportunity to introduce pedestrian benefits at the circles that you see on the map in orange. At all of those intersections, we are able to install painted pedestrian islands, which help to shorten the crossing distances, and also something that we call offset crossings, which you see in the photo on the lower left. Offset crossings are a design that includes a longer painted pedestrian island that opens up the sight lines, and also markings and some vertical elements that really slow down the drivers as they take that turn. So in this photo, if that vehicle were turning right, they would have much better visibility and be slowed down in advance and be able to see that person crossing with a stroller, as well as the cyclist traveling through the intersection. So it's something that really cleans up the intersection, but also allows for an area for vehicles to queue as they wait. Down at Queens Plaza North and Crescent Street, there's also an opportunity to realign the curbs and build out a curb extension to help clean up that intersection as well, and improve some of the queuing between the bridge and the Greenway and Crescent Street. So we just shared a lot of cross sections, a lot of different sections, and I just wanted to give you an overview of how our proposal actually really breaks down into two different design types for the bike lane. There's a parking protected bike lane that's shown in green on the map between Newtown Avenue all the way down to 38th Avenue, and that mirrors the photo that you see on the upper left. And then the rest of the project on the northern and southern ends is the delineator protected lane, or a lane separated with different vertical elements. And those are the narrower blocks. So I'd like to share a few more details just on how the design works. So in places with existing driveways, the driveway access is maintained with markings. As you see here, those dashed markings in the photo and in the diagram. And it tells cyclists that there's a driveway coming up, but it also shows drivers that they have a lot of room to enter and exit their driveways. With all of our projects, there's an opportunity to improve curb access through revisiting any curb regulations or meter updates. If there is interest, we're always able to look into that, as well as potential for loading zones and other tools. And generally, as I mentioned, we are adding some of the right turn lanes and some of the rush hour lanes. There's different places where the street opens up a little bit more than just the single travel lane. And so one of those examples is at these driveways, there's some extra flexibility where a vehicle could pull over to drop someone off without blocking the travel lane, but without encroaching on the bike lane as well. So overall, our proposal seeks to connect the bridges together, the RFK Bridge and the Queensboro Bridge, close different gaps in the bike lane network, provide better wayfinding throughout Astoria and the challenging street grid, and better connect cyclists throughout the area. We hope to begin implementation of the protected lane and the conventional and shared lanes in 2020. We continue to explore other opportunities for additional routes to the east-west as well. At this time, I'd like to open it up to questions.
I have a question.
I have a question.
Minute, please. Who has a question?
I have a question.
Dan Aliberti.
My question is about snow.
Dan, can you wait a minute, please?
Oh, sure.
Tom, is Bob Piazza available, Tom?
He's on his way. He hasn't showed up yet.
Okay. Apologies. Okay, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about inclement weather, snow, ice, sleet, things like that. On the lanes that have the vertical elements between them and the curb, will a snow plow be able to get in there? How will that be cleared for people to use the lane?
Yes, that's a great question. On this design, we do maintain enough clearance, enough space that a plow and a street sweeper can pass through. And that goes both for the parking protected section and also the delineator section.
And what about the bumps on the surface where it's not smooth? Will the plow scrape that off when it goes over?
So we've used that at a number of other locations throughout the city. To my knowledge, that has not been scraped away from the plows. If it does, if markings are worn away, we work to replace those, but generally they're quite long lasting for this. And the green paint has a textured quality that lasts through the winter very strongly with this material that we currently use.
This is
Thank you.
Richard Kazami. I have a question. My question is.
I have a question too.
Okay, my question is intersections, they need to be protected the same way the actual streets are. And you often have conflicts between vehicles and bicycles and pedestrians at intersections, particularly when cars are making right turns, bicycles are going straight through the neighborhood. There are other situations like this. We've always felt I've always felt that no protected bike lane should be built unless it has traffic controls. I've seen some of them on 2nd Avenue in Manhattan, places like that. But I think that at this point, since bicycles are going to become such a large part of our transport community for the foreseeable future, I think we need to start to build infrastructure that promotes safety, not just on the streets, but also through the intersections. It's been very dangerous. And there's too many times when myself as a driver, I've made a right turn and we've had a bicycle come up on the right-hand side where most drivers traditionally have not been taught to look. Now we are learning to do that more often, but disasters have been so close so many times. And I really think this is just as important as putting up Jersey barriers.
Thank you.
I have a question. Rudy?
Rudy, go ahead, Rudy.
My question is, I'm living in Astoria for 60 years.
I'm sorry, I didn't get an answer. Could I please get an answer?
Yes, so what I wanted to explain again is the intersection design that is included in this proposal. It will be on the other side of the street. Here it's on the right side of the street. But what this is, it's an offset crossing. It's hard to see it in this photo, but this is a longer pedestrian island that opens up the visibility for people making the turns. And then slows those turns. So this is a newer treatment that has been included in some projects throughout the city, but you may not have seen it yet at some of the projects you've traveled through. It will include more markings such as some of the green bars as well that really highlight to people driving that cyclists are passing through, and then they also turn in a way that their sight lines are improved. And so,
well, how have the traffic controls on 2nd Avenue worked out? Is there an issue why the city does not want to continue that practice?
So one of the reasons why the bike lane is along the east side of Crescent Street is that the left turns, which would run across the path, are actually a lot lighter than on the other side of the street. So we don't anticipate, heavy conflicts in some of the ways that you would see on 2nd Avenue, for example. So this project doesn't include the separated phasing along the whole corridor necessarily. This is more achieved with this offset crossing design.
Okay. I'm Rudy Sarkism. I live here in Astoria for 62 years, president of the Civic Association. I hear a lot of people have run about the bike lane. The bike, it's okay. Now, problem is how many people does it use this side street for the bike lane? Okay, if you want to put them on a main street like a 21st Avenue, 31st Street, Stanaway Street, or all those commercial traffic, which is the big street, is fine. Now, I take one reason on Crescent Street. If you go to 8th Avenue and to 38th Avenue, it's two-way street there. It's two-side parking, closest 2 lanes. How they going to have the bike lane beside the point? Now, all of this bike lane here, I know you say that the what do you call it, the accident, injury where it is, especially, do you have here in Astoria? What I see in Astoria, I use Crescent Street many times, might be once every day. I never see a bike go through between I say Dedmas Boulevard or even 21st Avenue, through to Crescent Street. I didn't even see a bike there, somebody with the bike. Plus, all this money we spend at this bike lane, you want to put the big traffic, I use the bike, okay. Car all over the city or the neighborhoods here. Now, what is the budget? How much, I want to know, how much do we spend for this bike lane? That's what my purpose is. How much it is, and what is gain Astoria, how much is being used, especially Crescent Street. Beside the others, then now we have more motor scooter for the restaurant in which you use it there all over the place. Then we have a bike. Now we have this motorized bike. We don't have a bike. Somebody wants to use the bike or go to work. Tell me. Got an answer, please?
So this is Nicole Garcia. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone is safe and healthy. I'm the Queensborough Commissioner for DOT, for those of you who don't know me. What I will say is that the materials that Eileen had mentioned, they are part of our in-house resources. So, you know, we can do a calculation. I'll have to get back to the board on that. But these are really in the operating budget. I mean, my agency manages all of the East River bridges. We resurfaced 6,000 miles of streets. What I can say cost-wise is that the treatments that we're proposing in this design are paint and delineators and some signage. So it's really pennies on the dollar when it comes to, you know, the budget of DOT. The reason why we are proposing this bike lane is to make it safer for cyclists. And obviously, you know, where we do put these protected lanes down, they tend to be safer for all street users, especially for pedestrians. So, you know, the cost calculation, I mean, implementation wise, in-house materials, we use in-house crews. It's part of our business as usual expenses. But what we've really found, and I think what New Yorkers really appreciate and what our city needs, are safer streets. And especially in the time of COVID, where some folks are still trying to figure out how they're going to get to school, to their families, to work. A north-south connection is going to provide a reliable, safer transportation option for the folks in Queens, and particularly in your community board.
Well, I don't see the expenses goes through to do all of this. And through,
So-
I mean, if you want to use the main street, I mean, the bike might use that, yes. But do the whole over what is going on and that, and I think it doesn't make sense. For the money will be people spend. You know, we have to pay for. That's what we.
So
money
we will
can be
we will
spent,
absolutely
spend
respectfully,
otherwise for the benefit for the
Okay,
community.
respectfully, we will do that calculation and we will provide that to
That's
Maria also.
terrible. Tell me, what I hear is terrible.
Okay, Rudy.
That's what I can tell you.
Hey, we'll get back to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Helen Ho was next. Helen, are you with us? Helen?
Can I speak? Can I ask a question?
Just a minute. I'm trying to go in order here. Rod Townsend. Rod, can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Thank you. There's a pop-up lane now for Crescent Street, which is intended to help us during COVID because biking has increased. It's very obvious visually as you're driving, as you're walking. There are more cyclists using the Queensborough Bridge to get to Manhattan. That's not being very well maintained, and I'm wondering who is responsible for its maintenance and how often it's being checked in on. Thank you.
Yes, so the temporary lane, as I mentioned earlier, it is a work in progress still. We haven't fully completed it. The barrels do get moved out of the way, unfortunately. But we do have staff rotating through the area to check, move the barrels back. We're getting more signs posted very soon, as well as hopefully some temporary markings to clarify. It has been challenging in terms of the materials and staffing that's available, but now that we're getting closer to more of our typical operations, that's something that we see that we'll be able to improve. So yes, it's been challenging. It's not always ideal in the way that it's set up right now, but it has given us a chance to see a lot of different curb uses that we can accommodate and design interventions to include with the more standard proposal. So in some ways, we've been able to really test out the new layout as well.
Thank you.
So this is Samantha Dolgoff. I was the planner for CB1 for about 5 years.
And now I'm taking on more of a bike role, but just to let you know, I personally am out there once or twice a week moving the barrels back, and I see what you're talking about. Yes, the barrels are constantly moving around. I did drag, I think about, 15 barrels today into the correct location. So yeah, it's an uphill battle. It's very difficult. We're trying to make sure that we're out there as much as possible. I know there are a few people from our bike unit that are also tasked with going out once a week. So, generally I think we're out there probably 4 times a week, but it is 4 times a week. I'm getting a confirmation from our deputy director, and it is still very difficult. They do move, and we're trying to keep a handle on it.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Tom Ryan, you had a question? Tom? Okay, does anybody else have?
Hold on. I just said unmute.
Okay.
Quick question. This came up at the committee meeting, especially on the outer roadway of Queensboro Bridge. What two-wheeled vehicles, and there are dozens of different vehicles, are actually authorized to ride in the bike lane? I mean, I'll mention one, like, are Hoovercrafts allowed to ride in them? Are Segways allowed to ride in them? I mean, anybody have an answer?
I'll take a stab at that, because obviously there's various legislation, because e-bikes obviously are now authorized if they go certain miles per hour. What is permissible in kind of the VTL, the vehicle traffic law, is obviously, words on paper. We would refer to NYPD as they are our partner in enforcement. What I can say is things like, and if anyone, is a Revel, or I've heard other people call it Revel, the mopeds, those are not supposed to be in bike lanes. Those are, licensed vehicles. I would, defer, some people have those like electric skateboards and stuff like that. Those are not, as it's written in the ad code, they are not supposed to be using bike lanes. And some of them are motorized, some of them are like have one wheels. Obviously, I have to work with the 114 to see how they would interpret that. It's words on a page, and I'd have to get their interpretation of the e-bikes versus, I guess, electric skateboards, and I think you said Segways. To my knowledge, that's not in the VTL.
Right, because I think that's a problem too. That seems like every powered two-wheel vehicle is using the bike lane sort of as like an express lane. And that's a danger not only to the bicyclists, but also to the cars. So that is an issue that I think should be addressed.
Yeah, so we can take that back to our policy unit, obviously, and John, who's a borough planner for your area, obviously will bring this back to our counterparts at PD. I mean, is there a particular motorized thing that's not a bike? I know you said the like Segways and stuff like that. What is your biggest concern right now?
My biggest concern just seems like any powered wheeled vehicle is being used in the bike lane. And I
there are pedal assists.
No, I know that. I'm saying I'm going extreme here, saying with Hoovercraft and Segways and the electric skateboards you talk about. Skateboards. So without going into any specifics, I have a concern that seems like everybody who's on a car or a truck or a motorcycle is using the bike lane as a express lane, and that concerns me as a driver. So.
Yeah, we'll have to get further clarity.
Hello? Okay. Dominic, did you have another question? Dominic Stiller?
Yeah, I actually didn't ask a question, but I have a question. If you go back to your page 24, and it's a few things about the specific markings, but I do agree that a protected bike lane A protected bike lane is a game changer. I do cycle every day to work. I say that all the time. It's a game changer. But when it's not protected and it's parked in by delivery vehicles, police department, and other vehicles, it's very, very dangerous. People have been killed with people parked in bike lanes and a bike has to go out. It's a protected bike lane will get kids on bikes. I know. What's my question? My question is, here you're showing on paper the green going through the intersection, and I think that's really important. I find frequently that turning vehicles don't realize that a bicycle is a vehicle. I find that vehicles wouldn't cut off another car to their right or their left. So I would request some education, maybe some signage that emphasizes that a vehicle, whether it's got two wheels and it's a bike or it's a car, there are rules of the road. And I know the rule is if you're turning, you have to, give way to vehicles going straight. Can we educate the community so that everybody, so that interface of bicycles and automobiles and that interface of pedestrians is more managed and the rules are, people are educated? Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Just a minute.
Can I get an answer?
Martin had the next question. Jeffrey, are you there? Jeffrey? Okay, then it was.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I just had to unmute myself.
Okay, thank you.
So I just had a comment. I know that, as has been discussed a lot of times tonight, COVID, we've seen a huge increase in cyclists. I fully support this plan, the north-south connection. I think it's appropriate for Crescent Street to be this north-south connection. I know this was discussed, east-west connection was brought up at in the meeting in February, but I just wanted to, again, reiterate that I think that 31st Avenue is an appropriate east-west connection. Again, appreciate all the hard work that DOT has put into the Crescent Street work, and it's great. I'm excited to ride on it. But I just ask that you continue working with us and continue working with our community. 31st Avenue can really provide that east-west connection, not only in Astoria, but out through Woodside, through Jackson Heights, really connecting more of Queens. So that's just my 2 cents. And again, thanks to DOT for thinking of our community.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Iraq, did you have a question? Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yeah, it's Iraq.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Thank you. I've been using Crescent temporary bike lane lately for the last month or so, and I noticed that there's a lot of potholes on Crescent between 38th Avenue all the way to Queens Plaza. What will be the best way for us to flag that to you in order for that to be repaired? Because it's definitely challenging, and sometimes you have to get out of the bike lane onto the traffic. So that I will, that will be something that will be needed to be taken care of.
Yes, a number of potholes were just recently filled already on the route, and we are working to see whether the resurfacing is feasible in advance of the marking. So we're taking a close look at that as well. We'll double check. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, both Samantha, John, and I, as well as Eileen, we've been speaking with our roadways team. Obviously, alternate side parking has been suspended for a very, very, very long time, probably the longest in the city's history, and for good reason. People who don't need to leave their homes shouldn't be leaving their homes, etc. I think it's ending next week. I'm not sure. I have to double check. But when that does get lifted, like the mayor did that a couple of weeks ago, just so that the sanitation trucks could get in. When we've sent our crews out, and we've sent them out several times to Crescent Street, we can't get to all of them, like in the parking lane, or you know, people as they were acclimating to the temporary bike lane, they might have been parking in that temporary bike lane. So we are aware of it. When ASP is lifted, we are going to try to get a crew out there to kind of almost follow DSNY. So when the cars are gone, we can kind of get to some of those potholes that we haven't been able to get to, but we are monitoring.
Okay, I have a question from a public member here.
Wait, Marie, 1 second. Marie.
Yes.
I never got an answer to the car education question that Dominic answered. There was no answer. There was no answer to Dominic's question. You
Yes.
just spoke and then went straight to the next question.
It was about turning cars in the right of way.
Yeah. What was the response?
Sure. With some of the designs, we do include signage that warns vehicles to yield as they're turning, yield to bikes, yield to pedestrians. We also work sometimes with our street ambassadors, our education team, to send them out distributing flyers and booklets about the rules of the road. Something else that we do typically with implementation of a project like this is post flyers along the route that help explain how some of these elements work. So we'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
I have
I'd
a
also
question.
like to add, we are kind of recycling because we haven't been able to do kind of our in-person street ambassador engagement. And as soon as, you know, pause is lifted and we're able to do that safely, we will. But just the other day, I was driving around the borough and I did see some outdoor advertising. So I guess we're recycling some of our Vision Zero ads. And we do have a citywide campaign. I haven't heard it in the radio in a long time, but we do have campaigns specifically focused for drivers to slow their turns to 5 miles per hour. So I know that there are posters in several places throughout the city. So there is kind of that type of touch point with the general public.
I have a question.
Just to make, we're going in order here. 1 second. Mitch, did you have a question as well?
Actually, I just wanted to bring out to the larger group a couple of the smaller details we discussed on the Transit Committee meeting about this presentation. Notably, Helen, I believe, brought up the kind of sewer grates that the bike lane will be running through, which are not too good for bicycles. And we also discussed the creation of a bicycle lensed traffic signal at Queens Plaza to protect bicyclists as they make that right turn across the 2 lanes of traffic toward the bridge. Helen or Dominic, was there anything else we discussed along those lines that we should share with the larger group?
Well, I don't believe we're there yet, so I'm waiting to see if any other board member has a question.
Yes, Daniel Aliberti.
Okay, Dan, go ahead, please.
Hi. Have you guys addressed the issue of people using wheelchairs, either powered or manual, traveling in the bike lane? Quite often, wheelchair users would rather ride in the street because then they don't have to go up curbs and down curbs and all those issues. So have you guys addressed it? And if so, what are you doing?
So I'll just add, and I haven't had this question in some time, but obviously, you know, we do have a policy division, and within that policy division, we do have someone who specifically deals with people with disabilities and advises our urban planners and designers and engineers, etc. I'm going to have to bring this back to them. Obviously, you know, it's that gray area again, where, you know, per the VTL, the vehicle traffic law, I think how it is written says that, you know, bike lanes are for bikes, but obviously there's been change. You know, there's pedal assist bikes are allowed to use it, etc. So we really have to take that back. I don't know if NYPD has a position on that. I would be interested to see if someone in an electric wheelchair has ever been summoned, because, you know, people need to have an accessible way to get from point A to point B. I'm not the authority on that, and I'm going to have to take that back to legal, and I can consult with NYPD.
Yeah, just a little more on that, and that people with powered wheelchairs, where there is no bike lane on just a regular old-fashioned road, if they are in the right-hand lane, a car would be able to go to the left lane and go around them, and there would be no problem. But if they're in a protected bike lane and bikes want to come behind them or whatever, there's going to be a traffic jam in there. And so, you know, that's why my question is here.
I'd like to break in here, Commissioner. I believe Ted Wright from DOT, he's on chat, and he says both pedestrians and people in wheelchairs can use the bike lane.
He's in bikes, so he knows the law better than I do. Yes, that's a technical difficulty.
He's not with us live. So I'm just passing that on.
Okay.
Okay. I have a quick question, Marie.
Richard, please.
What? Okay.
Please. Okay, I wanted to read you the question from the public, if you don't mind, Commissioner or whoever. Why is the lane on the east side when the connection to the Queensboro protected lane is on the west side of Crescent? I ride this currently, and you have to cut across the car lanes to get to the bridge path. I guess the trade-off is that drivers are less likely to see bikers when making right turns, but wanted to hear your analysis of that trade-off. That's from Andrew Gallen. Can somebody respond to that, please?
Yes, so there are a few reasons of why the bike lane is along the east side of the street. One reason is that it has fewer intersections that conflict with the bike lane. So for example, there are a number of what we call T intersections that come in from the west side, but they don't continue all the way through Crescent Street. They just kind of end. So there are much more of those along the west curb. So there are fewer intersections on the east curb. There are also lighter turning volumes along the east side. So we just saw heavier right turns than left turns along this corridor, looking at the typical traffic volumes. And then yes, at the Queensboro Bridge, there will be, the design will clarify how to cross over and which phase to cross over during. But generally, you know, those are a few of the reasons. You know, one more reason is that with the southbound bikes, here, let me just show an image that will better illustrate. So in the sections where this bike lane is separated with the painted buffer and the delineators, the bikes that are going in the opposite direction of traffic, the northbound bikes, it gives them an option to be farther away from the moving lane than if they were on the other side of the street. So that's one more design reason. So this brings the bike lane, the bike that is traveling with traffic is still separated by the painted buffer and the delineators, but this gives more space between that contraflow movement.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to read another question, if that's okay, from the public. Much of the city has a huge problem regarding vehicles parking in bike lanes, putting cyclists at risk and lack of enforcement of said vehicles. How is DOT making sure that the sections of the new path that aren't parking protected will prevent drivers from entering, since delineators can just be driven over?
And so with this section where we have one travel lane, it is important to provide the ability for an emergency vehicle to pass through that bike lane and for sweeping and sanitation as well with plows. One thing that we're including with this proposal is there are a few locations where we're updating some of the regulations on the west curb, which can be used as a quick pullover spot for delivery instead of blocking the bike lane. So we're taking a close look at the regulations to make sure there's a little bit of wiggle room to prevent some of that behavior.
Okay, thank you. Does any other board member have a question?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
After, assuming all this is all in place and we have all these bike lanes and I'm going down, I'm a bike rider, and I'm going down Crescent Street, and I decide I don't want to ride in the bike lane. I want to ride in a regular lane. Am I then going to be subject to getting a fine, a summons, a ticket, or anything like that? What will happen in the future with this?
Does anybody have an
Get
answer
hit
to
by a
that?
car.
Eileen, you're muted.
So this is Sean Macias, Deputy Director. So generally cyclists can travel anywhere a vehicle can travel. So if there is a cyclist who's comfortable riding with traffic and decides to pull out of the two-way path and move into the travel lane, I believe they're free to do so. It just depend on the confidence, of the cyclist deciding to take that lane.
So at that point, we would have the same problem we have now, and that is traffic lanes being shared. Is that correct?
Yes, but the difference is currently you don't have a protected option. So in this proposed condition, you would have that protected option. And if someone is confident enough to travel in the travel lane, then they can do so. But folks who are newer to cycling or perhaps not as confident will have a safe space to travel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other board member have a question? Okay, we've had several letters. I should clarify. I'm sorry. We have had several emails, mostly in support of this bike lane. And I'm going to ask Amy and Richard to read them into the record.
I go first?
You go first.
Okay, the first one is from Todd Schultz. His email says, please make a permanent protected bike lane on Crescent. It should be a protected bike lane with immobile physical dividers between bikes and cars from Astoria Boulevard to 59th Street Bridge. This would protect cyclists, calm traffic on Crescent, and improve the environment. So that's from Todd Schultz. Next one is from Professor Patrick Redding, and he writes, Dear Queens Community Board, I am writing in support of the bike lanes being planned for Crescent Street between the Triborough and the Queensboro Bridge. This change is long overdue, as this is one of the most dangerous one-lane roads we have in Astoria. The other is 33rd Street between Northern Boulevard. I live on Crescent Street at 3221 Crescent near Broadway, where a speed camera has recently been installed right in front of my house. It has made no difference in reducing motor speeds. Bikes, cars, motorcycles, and taxis routinely drive by here at speeds of up to 30 to 40 miles per hour. Pedestrians routinely jaywalk across Crescent on 33rd Avenue and 33rd Road, so this is especially dangerous for them too. I go out of my way to avoid using Crescent Street when biking with my children because of its danger. Now I can safely bike them down to LIC without having to add an extra mile to the route or biking through industrial areas near 21st Street. I can't wait for this bike lane to be implemented. The coronavirus has made biking even more popular, and we have one of the safest lanes already over on Jackson Boulevard, but it's not very close to most residents of our neighborhood. This would be a game changer for transportation in our neighborhood. Next one is from Nicholas Lowe. Simply writes, hi, the new bike lane is absolutely important to those of us who bike from Astoria to Manhattan. It saves us from the unsafe routes that put us in danger and put drivers in impossible situations. Two more. Let's see. This one is from Gabriel Torres, and he writes, resident of the area for 28 years, and I've been dreaming of this day since. Thank you so much for putting these in finally. Definitely need some more bike parking stations in Astoria as well. It would be it would really help along the Crescent Street bike lane with all the supermarkets and such. Again, thank you so much for this. And I have one more from Jesse Thistle, who writes, I'm writing to share my support for a two-way bike lane on Crescent Street. I'm a nurse and bike commuting is the quickest and most reliable way to get to and from work, especially during the early mornings and weekends. Crescent Street is the ideal location because it is the only direct route for people living north of 34th Avenue. I'm also hopeful that the addition of the bike lane will help slow traffic on the street, making it safer for pedestrians.
Okay, I have four more also. The first is from Jennifer Chakrabarty, and as a longtime Astoria resident, mother, and frequent bicyclist, I am excited to learn that a permanent Crescent Street two-way protected bike lane is in the works, especially since the temporary one is an absolute death trap. Prior to the current pandemic situation, I was a frequent bicycle commuter going from Astoria Park area to Midtown or downtown via the Queensboro Bridge. Crescent is the most direct route down to the bridge for me, but coming back home has always been a challenge because there's no logical northern route. It isn't putting me a mile or so out of my way. And additionally, when I want to ride into Central Park with my kids, getting to and from the bridge always requires an extra mile or more to ensure our safety. We're forced to bike well out of our way to ride on the Vernon Boulevard bike lane. This would be much more convenient to have a direct south and north route on Crescent. Not to mention I'd be able to avoid a few hills, which is a big deal when I'm riding with 40 pounds of a 5-year-old on my bike. I do hope that the bike lane on Crescent is approved and no one is willing to cave into the Where Will I Drive and Where Will I Park folks. I truly hope that my safety and that of my children will be more important. The second is from Daniel Brown. Dear community board members, I would like to say that the recent bike lane has been an absolutely terrific and welcome addition to Astoria. Prior to this, there was no safe method in order to travel from Astoria to other parts of the city, specifically through the Queensboro Bridge. I've never felt as safe as I have while riding through a street and no longer have the anxiety of either checking over my shoulder for a speeding car or concerned that someone would open their car door directly into me and push me directly into moving traffic. I've also visited local stores and restaurants, which I would have otherwise not visited because of the cars on Crescent Street have traditionally moved way too fast for comfort. However, there are still many downsides to this bike lane as it is not fully protected. Many drivers ignore the temporary bollards and park in lanes to force cyclists to swerve in and out of traffic, endangering ourselves and the drivers who try to avoid us. I've also seen some of the bollards knocked out of position and into the bike lane because it's not truly protected. I still feel very safe, but worried that this eventually will deteriorate further and the lane's effectiveness will be diminished. Lastly, I would like to say that with everything that is happening during COVID-19, I am looking for new ways to travel to and from work without having to enter a crowded subway. I generally love taking public transit, but will be limiting my commute in order to reduce the chances of coming into contact with the virus. I've noticed many other people choosing to drive cars rather than to take public transit, so there'll be more people on the road moving faster than before, so a safe route to work is needed now more than ever. I would like to thank you for your work in helping implement this bike lane, as it has truly been a life changer. I went from a casual city bike rider to someone who feels much more confident about riding on my bike and commuting, visiting friends, and frequenting local businesses. I look forward to joining the Zoom meeting tomorrow and hearing the full plans moving forward. The next is from Scott Phillips, an avid cyclist who takes the opportunity to use his bike whenever weather permits. I strongly support the construction and maintenance of a permanent bike lane on Crescent Street. We currently have partial bike lanes on 29th and 28th Streets, allowing for bike travel to and from the Queensboro Bridge, but they are neither adequately maintained or protected. When traffic increases, drivers often take their road rage and careless habits out on law-abiding bicyclists. I have seen it and suffered from it several times. A protected bike lane on Crescent would increase safety and traffic flow for commuting, Astoria LIC cyclists tremendously, and serve our community well. From Scott Phillips. And last, this is from our Assemblywoman, Arabella Simotas. Respected members of Queens Community Board 1, I write to express my support for and encourage you to vote in favor of the proposed bike lanes over Crescent Street, Astoria. The Transportation Committee has rightly expressed their support for this issue, and it is my hope that the board will do the same and approve this proposal. Having a designated bike lane for bikes is crucial to protect the safety of our district's residents. According to the Department of Transportation, Crescent Street is a Vision Zero priority area, meaning that it is an area in which at least 9 persons have been killed or severely injured within 5 years. Between 2013 and 2017, the street has seen a total of 241 injuries and 2 deaths. Bike lanes can help decrease the amount of injuries and fatalities in this area by separating bikes from vehicles and increasing the predictability of cyclist locations so that drivers can bypass them. In addition to improving the safety of our community, bike lanes will promote participation in physical activity and support cyclists who are of all ages. Bike lanes will also encourage alternative modes of transportation that decrease our emissions and are environmentally friendly. This proposal will also close several gaps in bike routes and allow cyclists to access the RFK and Queensboro bridges safely. For these reasons, I strongly recommend that you support the proposal for the Crescent Street bike lanes, protected bike lanes, and vote in favor of the proposals. Thank you, and I look forward to working with you on this issue. Arabella Simotas. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, Tom Ryan, are you with us? Tom? Okay.
I'm on mute.
Okay. Would you like to give the, I'm assuming Bob is not there?
Yeah, Bob called and said he's sorry, but something, he had an emergency.
Okay, so would you please give us the committee's recommendation?
Yes, I will. We have to, Bob Piazza. The Transportation Committee had a quorum. They voted unanimously in support of the Crescent Street bike lane with the stipulation that DOT would accommodate any specific matters or issues raised by the Community Board Office in regards to the finalization of this plan.
Okay, is that a motion, Tom?
I don't think I can make the motion.
Oh, well, can we have,
Someone else make it?
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
Okay, Amy made the motion.
I make a motion to approve this proposal.
You need a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Louise, I said I second it.
Thank you.
You're
Louise.
welcome.
Okay, is anybody opposed? I'm trying to do it the easy way. Anybody opposed? No, okay, unanimous. Thank you so much, DOT and Tom for stepping up, and all the board members for their input and the public. Thank you. Righty.
Thank you.
So next up is Mr.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Jim Kim, who's been waiting all this while to inform us on the census. Are you here?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairwoman, and also District Manager and all of the board members, and of course the Community Board 1 members. I have 2 good news. First, I'm going to go breeze through this and keep it very short. But more importantly, your district is doing fairly well in the 2020 census response. So as you know, March 12th, U.S. Census Bureau kicked off the 2020 decennial census, and where we invited every household to respond to the survey. We were seeking the households to respond online, telephone, or by mail. So far, nationally, on average, we have a 61.4% response rate. New York State has 56.7% response rate. New York City, the 5 boroughs, have 51.9%. Queens currently has 51.9%. Now, having said that, the Community Board 1 area, Astoria, Old Astoria, Woodside, and parts of Long Island City is currently at 52.7%. So your district is certainly doing well for that matter. So we appreciate everyone who has responded to the survey. Let me also provide you some update. We had to make a lot of operational adjustments due to the COVID-19. Most significantly for the public, we have extended the response period, that being October 31st instead of July 31st. Had this been a normal situation, our census response period would have ended next month on 31st. However, we've gotten 3-month extension to make sure that everybody exercises social distancing and all of the state and local guidelines. Thus, we have extended through March 31st. We will begin what we call non-response follow-up. That is the door knocking for those who did not respond on their own, online, telephone, or mail. That's going to start on August 11th, where we are going to dispatch our Census Bureau representatives to collect the survey responses. So, we hope that from now until August, we continue to increase our response rates so that we reduce the number of home visits. That's going to save us a lot of time and, of course, money. Also, I wanted to let you know that we do have a self-response rate map that is available to the public by visiting the 2020 census.gov, where you could look at your community, how well your community is doing. We divide each individual geographical region by what we call census tracts. In your district, there are 52 census tracts, and those boundaries are defined specifically streets and the housing units that are present in those street boundaries. So some areas are doing very well. I've seen upwards of 67% in your district, which is phenomenal. But then we've seen as low as 38%. So we need, there are areas where we need still a lot of work to be done. Let me remind everyone of some of the survey awareness and for the purpose of security. Census Bureau conducts a variety of surveys throughout the year, in addition to the decennial census, which is our largest, largest operation that we conduct every 10 years. So don't be alarmed if people get contacted by Census Bureau for other than the decennial census. Secondly, there's a lot of fraud that occurs, unfortunately, during the decennial census. A lot of criminals take advantage and exploit people during the census period. So we want to remind the public that the Census Bureau, during any of their surveys, would never ask for social security number, financial account numbers, or solicit money, or anything on behalf of a political party. So if any of those are being asked by alleged census representative, it is a fraud. So we ask that you report those activities by calling 1-800-923-8282, 800-923-8282. And also you could visit 2020census.gov and review some of the latest information. We heard that there was an incident where during the stimulus fund issuance that there was, it was required that they provide certain information in order for them to receive census information in order for them to receive stimulus funding, which is untrue. Census is not tied to any of that. So if anyone's heard of those type of incidents, please report those activities. And finally, I would like to ask for your help. We do need to continue to promote the census, educate the public, raise awareness about the importance and the safety of the census. As you know, federal funding is tied to the census. representation in the Congress, as well as local government to some extent. Depends on the population of our neighborhoods. So it is very, very important. It funds a lot of the public programs, transportation, infrastructure, health, medical care, supplemental nutrition, certain education, a lot of the programs for seniors and children. So a lot is at stake. So we ask that everyone not only respond to the survey, but also help us to continue to raise awareness. So my message to you is very simple today. You understand your community, the people and their priorities and their needs, and you know how effectively deliver the census message to them in ways that Census Bureau can never achieve. So please help us. You are the trusted voices of your community. Educate them on the significance of the 2020 census and encourage them to respond to the survey. I am here to help anyone who's willing to work with us to help raise awareness. We have promotional materials that's available, and I could certainly come out to your community audience and provide census presentations. We could also help them, answer any questions and address any concerns they may have. We are getting ready once social distancing guidelines are lifted to go out to the community and help people complete the survey as well for those that are having difficulties filling out the survey. There are phone numbers that are available, dedicated phone numbers for 12 non-English languages. So those language options are available. And as well as online responses, there are 12 non-English languages available as well to facilitate any language needs. So with that said, I would like to thank Community Board 1 for doing an excellent job in promoting census for us. And I think Rick, I think I heard Rick Kuzami a couple of weeks ago. We did a similar event where I was invited to speak during the Old Astoria Neighborhood Association meeting. So those are the kind of outreach and the support that you could give us. Help us reach your audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe we have a question as to whether there is any applications for enumerator or census takers positions still available.
Yes, so we are still accepting applications. It's an online application, 2020census.gov/jobs. We have suspended the hiring process due to the COVID-19, but we are currently in the process of processing those applications that we have received in the past. So yes, the opportunity is still there. So please go online and apply. It's $28 an hour for their services, but more importantly, they'll be helping their community.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for the information, Mr. Kim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Elected officials or their representatives, is there anyone here? Joe Nocerino, because I'm looking right at you.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Marie, I'm sorry. This is Vanessa. Marie.
Yes.
Goodbye.
I'm sorry. Before you move forward, I apologize for jumping in. I just wanted to just mention something other than what Jen has said about the census. Currently, while we're going through to bring in the working on getting the new and the enumerators that have already filed, I'm reaching out to you all, my board members and anyone else who's on here, that we're looking for space where we can hold training. So if anyone has a space where we can hold training for our enumerators as we start to bring them on board, that you can reach out to Florence and get Florence. It's okay if you don't mind that they can give my number out. It's 917-348-9181. Is where we're looking for a space where we can get to allow us to be able to do some training, and they can go through me for that site, whomever's willing to allow us to use their space. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marie.
You're welcome. Okay, Joseph.
Hi, folks. Thank you. Madam Chair, thank you, Florence, and all board members. Hope you're all well and safe. Quickly tonight, first of all, Sharon Lee, Borough President Sharon Lee sends her regards. Welcomes first-time appointees to your new gig and wishes you the best. And of course, welcomes all returning members, besides all that sit on the board. Early voting is now. Election June 23rd, and absentee ballots are out. We can't stress how important it is for folks to get out and vote. Now, a couple of quick dates, events, and Marie or Florence will send them out to you too. All borough presidents events. Pride event is June 18th at 2 p.m. They're all can be on the website, logged in on the website, obviously virtual. The recruitment fair, third month in a row, June 24th at 2 p.m. Philippine Independence Day event, June 24th at 5 p.m. And Celebration of Jerusalem event, June 25th at 5 p.m. And I thank you for the time, Madam Chair, and all be well.
Thank you, Joe. Ernie Brooks? We can't hear you.
I'm muted?
No, you're not muted. We can't hear you. Try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I want to reiterate the importance of the census. It's good to hear that Queens is doing better. That's something that Carolyn's very And she writes, throughout the coronavirus crisis, I've been in constant contact with our hospitals, my state and local partners, small businesses, and constituents.
Oh, you're breaking in and out.
You need to go closer to your mic. We cannot hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
You have to stay right there and yell.
Stay right here. I've been in contact with hospitals, state and local partners, small businesses, and constituents. And I'm taking what I've been hearing back to DC. The CARES Act is an emergency response to the crisis. It wasn't a perfect bill. On the House side, we've been trying to address some of those shortcomings in the recently passed act, which is, of course.
No, you have to face the microphone. We can't hear you.
Well, I can't. Oh, I know what. I had my phone on top of it. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I had something blocking me. We're trying to provide an extra $34 billion in federal funding to New York State, an additional $17 billion for New York City. Tighten up oversight on the Paycheck Protection Act to look into why so many large corporations were taking past taxpayer dollars that were intended for small businesses. For consumers, not-for-profits, and small businesses, it will grant a moratorium on all debt collection until 120 days after the end of the whole COVID-19 crisis. During the crisis, negative consumer credit reporting will be banned, and all COVID-19 related medical debt reporting will be permanently banned. We're providing $25 billion for funding to the U.S. Postal Service to keep it solvent, which is especially important with voting by mail, which remember ballots have to be sent in, well, they had to be sent in today to get your absentee ballot. Finally, the bill would send an additional stimulus check to everyone who was eligible the last time around. But this time it would include additional payments for dependent children over the age of 17. I'm also working on landmark legislation to provide businesses with access to insurance payments to help them stay whole. My Pandemic Risk Insurance Act, or PRIA, is modeled on similar legislation I championed after the 9/11 attacks, when you couldn't even get business insurance for a hot dog stand in New York. I think PRIA will not only start to help businesses now, but act as an important resource going forward. I've also introduced important bills to help out the brave heroes on the front line of this crisis. First is my Student Debt Forgiveness for Frontline Healthcare Workers Act, which would do exactly what it sounds like and eliminate student loan debts for anyone in the medical field directly working on the response to COVID-19. The other legislation is a broad compensation fund for the families of frontline workers who pass away as a result of COVID-19. Our postal workers, grocery store clerks, transit workers, nurses, and so many others are putting themselves at great risk of contracting COVID-19 while continuing to work doing essential jobs. We should honor their bravery and commitment to their communities by collectively ensuring that their families are not left in a financially precarious position while they deal with the emotional tragedy of the loss of a loved one. Against the back of COVID-19, our nation is confronting the shameful reality of continuing and ever-present inequality sparked by videos of the gut-wrenching murder of George Floyd. Mr. Floyd's life was stolen by an officer whose duty was supposed to be to serve and protect, not to brutalize and kill. I'm relieved to see that this officer was arrested and charged, but so much more must be done to stop our nation's vicious cycle of police brutality. It should not take a viral video or national outcry to recognize the reality of this or to ensure that justice is served. But our nation can finally tackle this crisis that has taken the lives of so many innocent Black people and robbed their communities. We must do more to hold our police officers accountable and to dismantle the racist power structure that allows this kind of violence to fester. I am incredibly proud of all those peacefully exercising their constitutional rights in protest. I've witnessed firsthand people on the street exercising de-escalation tactics and self-policing those opportunists who would use this moment for their own personal and financial gain. I would do everything in my power to see this nation finally realizes its radical promise of universal equality. You can see the legislative proposals I am supporting to achieve just that at house.gov, issues combating police violence. And that's on our website. We are living in a historic moment, and our actions today will determine our tomorrow. So thank you very much for having us. Thank you, Florence. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you. Is there any other elected official or representative on the call who would like to speak?
Good evening, members and leadership of Community Board 1. My name is Marcus Bettinger, and I'm a caseworker and field representative for the office of Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. And you don't know me because tonight I'm filling in for Daniel Bontius. But thank you for having me. A few updates from our office. The Congresswoman has asked me to acknowledge this remarkably painful moment for Black Americans. As she has said publicly, she is also hopeful that this moment marks a turning point, the beginning of the end of oppression and the start of true economic and social justice and equity for all. There will be a lot of work to do in the days, weeks, months, and truly years ahead to make that hope a reality. While much of this change will need to take place on the city and state level, the federal government also has a huge role to play. A couple legislative updates. This week, we introduced our office, the Prohibiting Chemical Weapons and Law Enforcement Act. Tear gas was banned from war by the Geneva Protocol in 1925. This bill would ban the use of tear gas by federal law enforcement, condition state and local law enforcement eligibility for grants on their compliance with the ban, and the establishment of policies ending its use, among other items. We also co-sponsored the Justice and Policing Act of 2020, the Democrats' response to calls to address police brutality. The legislation would, 1, establish a national standard for operation of police departments, 2, mandate data collection on police encounters, 3, reprogram existing funds to invest in community-based policing programs, and 4, streamline federal law to prosecute excessive force and establish independent prosecutors for police investigations. Additionally, the Congresswoman signed onto Representative Ayanna Pressley's The People's Justice Guarantee, which guarantees proposals to combat mass incarceration by expanding access to restorative justice, ending the cash bail system, implementing minimum sentences, terminating solitary confinement, and ending the death penalty. She also joined a resolution authored by Representatives Pressley, Omar, Bass, and Lee condemning police brutality and racial profiling. On another topic, in honor of Pride Month, on June 1st, the Congresswoman, along with Representative Maloney, co-sponsored House Resolution 989, expressing the sense of the House of Representatives that blood donation policies in the United States should be equitable and based on science. Along lines of the census, despite the disruption that COVID-19 has had, Census 2020 is still ongoing. As Mr. Kim mentioned, if you haven't yet, please complete the census at my2020census.gov. Astoria and Steinway are doing really well so far, so we should applaud everyone who has committed to getting a complete count. We have already counted upwards of 55% in most of the CB1 region, and this is on par with the state and ahead of the city and New York 14 averages. So thank you for your hard work. But if you have family members or friends who have not completed the census, please encourage them to do so. On constituent services, we are very pleased to announce that our office has reached 1,000 cases. I myself am a caseworker for the office. We have reached 1,000 cases. That means we have served over 1,000 constituents on issues ranging from immigration and veterans affairs to Social Security and more recently, the economic impact payments. Our office continues to assist constituents with federal casework remotely. I am at home in Ohio with my parents, but I am working on cases every day. So we continue to accept cases at our website, ocasio-cortez.house.gov, or over the phone, the office number. And with the office number, when you call, you will either get someone who answers or you can leave a voicemail, and we check every single voicemail. The office number is 718-662-5970. And thank you for the time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have for the office.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there any other elected official who wishes to make a statement? Okay, Chairman's report.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Good evening, everybody. My name is Victoria. I'm from Assemblymember Barnwell's office. I just have a brief few updates. So one, our office has put out our COVID-19 resource guide. We're continuously updating it to make sure that it has all the up-to-date information and resources that may be accessible to you on the city and state level, also including some nonprofit resources. This Thursday, partnering with NILAG, we're offering free legal service consultations from home. So if you have any legal questions that you want to kind of talk that over with, please reach out to our office. You can sign up by calling us or by emailing us directly. So you can email barnwellb@nyassembly.gov. We have very limited appointments available right now, so please sign up sooner rather than later. And then lastly, as we continue to work remotely and it's unclear when we'll be back in the office, you can continue to call us or email us with any questions or concerns that you or other community members may have. If you don't get to us on the first call, please leave a message with your name, number, and your concern, and we'll call you right back. We've seen a really high influx of calls over the last few weeks, so it's hard with the phone forwarding system. So just leave a message and we'll get back to you by the end of the day. Other than that, I wish you all great health and welcome to all of the new community board members. I'm looking forward to speaking with you all and working with you all much more closely. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to go to the chairman's report. And it really is a welcome report because I want to welcome the new board members. And when I call your name, if you could say a sentence or two about yourselves. And I'm going to go to Louise Boardley first, a brand new board member. Can you say a couple of sentences or?
Hi, my name is Louise Boardley. I live in Long Island City / Astoria, and I do security, and I love working with people.
Oh, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Iraq Hansky.
That was perfect.
Hi there.
Hi, that was great. So my name is Iraq Chihansky. I work for local government for the New York City Council in Manhattan. And I moved here from Mexico 5 years ago, living in Astoria for 4 years and a half now. I fell in love with this neighborhood since before moving. So I'm very happy to be here and I cannot wait to see you in person.
Welcome. Thank you. Shahnaz Hamday, I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yes, Mary. Hello, everyone. My name is Shahnaz Hamdi. I live in Astoria for more than 10 years now, and I work in a nonprofit organization. And I'm really happy to be part of the board and really interesting to see everyone and we be together again. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Amin Mehdi. Amin, are you here?
Yes.
Hi there.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very glad to have all of you together here, that I'm introducing all of you, the good people that have been working for the community long time. And it's my pleasure to be with you. It has been excellent that the thing that you've been doing, the bike lane, and I saw that boardwalk on the ferry ride, and all of those things that I've been a couple of meetings before. So I'm very excited to work with all of you, and we will together will make better Astoria in Queens. And I look forward to in person see all of you. Thank you very much, everyone, for having me with you.
Thank you and welcome. And last but not least, Juliet Ayabaya.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Juliet.
All right. Can you hear me, right?
Yes, we can. Now we can.
Yes, you can hear me, right?
Right now, okay.
Okay. Yeah, Juliet, and I've been a resident of Astoria for 44 long years.
Wow.
And I'm an active community leader in my Filipino community in New York. And I've been attending your meetings in Astoria Manor as an observer. And tonight is my first meeting with the community board as an official member. And I'm pleased to meet you all virtually.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. And we look forward to one day being able to meet personally as well. But we have to wait for that.
Marie.
Yes.
Marie, I think Irene from Senator Janaris' office is trying to get in.
Okay.
Hey guys, it's Irene. Thank you for having me on here, and we are accessible by email, by phone calls. I've been on top of the issue with the no mask, no social distancing on 30th and Ditmars especially. So I have been working on that hard. I don't know what else I can do on this end. So, and also, so you guys know, we have masks going around. If anybody needs anything, just let us know. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Irene.
Thanks.
Murray, excuse me, Murray, I had a question.
Yes.
Okay, I would, for the boat ride on the Astoria that we have, how we can make more effective, which committee I should join, and we can talk about it, because I know that it has been 2 years that we have that, but it's not that popular yet. So I have some idea I can share with that committee and then go through from there. I was talking with Florence about that. So
well, we're going to be sending out a questionnaire regarding your interest in committees, and then we'll reach out to you.
All right, thank you, Mari.
You're very welcome. All right, last night I was at the Borough Board meeting, and we received an update on the Test and Trace Corps. The Corps wants to set up infrastructure to test 50,000 New Yorkers per day by August 1st. If you test positive, you'll receive a call from a tracer who will determine if you need more medical information and also help arrange isolation at home or at a free hotel if you don't have the room at home to isolate from others. And a free healthcare and mental health services and meal and medication. So that is a great thing. And I'm going to ask Florence if we could send out information, Florence, on this to all our board members. So we can pass it on and get the word out there. So hopefully somehow COVID-19 will be decimated by all these things that are coming up. My next item is I want to inform everyone that we have a vacant position on the executive board. So we have had one of the officers was not reappointed. Therefore, at this meeting, we're going to deem that position vacant. We'll be having an election in September. In the meantime, in August, we will send out information and a form for if you wish to nominate someone. That will go back to the office. We will then send out a ballot, because I don't think we'll be meeting in person soon, but I could be wrong. So we're going to send out ballots. You will fill them out and we'll provide, of course, a self-stamped envelope so you can mail it back. Unless there's a miracle that happens and we can all be together live and in person in September. And that's my report. Florence? Muted. Florence, you're muted.
Yes, thank you, Marie. Thank you for everything. Okay, I have a report which I received from the mayor's office, and it is in response to outdoor cafe applications. License application fees still need to be submitted for new renewable sidewalk cafe applications. A COVID relief package signed into law by Mayor Bill de Blasio extends license expiration dates and renewals of application deadlines covered by Emergency Executive Order 107 and 110. In general, the extension applies to licenses with expiration dates on or after May 12, 2020. When the mayor first declared the state of emergency, new renewal application deadlines are calculated from when EEO 110 expires. City Council recently passed a bill that suspends collection of indoor enclosed sidewalk cafe consent cafe fees from restaurants for March 1st, 2020 through the duration of the emergency, and for outdoor unenclosed sidewalk cafes from March 1st, 2020 to February 28th, 2021. Through the mayor's executive order, the city has already stopped collecting these fees for the duration of the emergency. Any such consent fees are already collected and have been refunded. DCWP, which used to be known as Department of Consumer Affairs, is still reviewing new and renewable sidewalk cafe applications and promptly informing applicants of anything they might need to know to amend or submit. But they are not forwarding to other agencies for review due to the mayor's executive order. If someone is applying for new sidewalk cafe application or renewal and have any questions, they can contact by email sidewalkcafe@dca.nyc.gov and receive prompt assistance and response. Our office is receiving requests to learn about the new laws for sidewalk cafes post-COVID. We have not gotten any updates at this point. As soon as any updates come to assist the businesses locally regarding the rules and regulations in phase 2, we will let you know. Thank you. We wish you all great summer and health and happiness and continued good health. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Florence. A motion to adopt the May 2020 minutes.
Motion.
Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Or those
Aye.
opposed, is
Aye.
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 No.
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous, I would say.
Aye.
Committee reports. Airport, Rosemary, you here? Rosemary?
Marie,
Yes?
in Rosemary's absence, report, we have a LaGuardia committee meeting coming up, a virtual meeting tomorrow evening, which I will be tuning in on.
Okay, thank you. Consumer Affairs. Eric Boucher, are you here?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes?
All right, good evening, everyone. If you could please review your consumer affairs spreadsheet that was emailed to you. We're voting on applicants for the month of June. The entities that we agreed to stipulations are marked. Now, with respect to Hangar Astoria Bar and Grill, the committee met with this business in January to discuss a prior renewal application, and we recommended that the board vote to deny their renewal, which the board subsequently did. Now, despite this fairly recent denial, they submitted a new application, and the 114th precinct provided another report stating that the location is highly problematic with 42 311 calls and 55 911 calls. So the committee is going to recommend that the board vote to deny Hangar's application again. Now, as to NYMF Bar, they are not seeking a renewal, they're just seeking a corporate change, which involves a change in ownership. Now, they have to report to the community board when there's a transfer of ownership of more than 80% of the business. Here, there's going to be 100% transfer of ownership to a completely new owner of the applicant entity, Les Amis Cafe, Inc. Now, the business is not currently open from what we understand, and the committee has been told by the new owner that it was actually closed since February. However, over the past year, the prior owners had 141 311 calls regarding noise complaints, as well as complaints regarding the social distancing and so forth. So as a result, the committee asked the new owner and a representative to come in to speak to us. And I do want to thank the committee for coming together so quickly after we got this police report last week. Now, the committee spoke to a representative and the new sole owner of the business. The new sole owner is not one of the prior owners. The new owner is going to conduct renovations and stated that none of the former employees are going to be working at the location. The new owner affirmed familiarity with the mayor's social distancing guidelines and also said that the employees will be trained to follow the guidelines. Also, the prior location played a lot of loud music, and the new owner intends to target a different crowd that's more mellow and will not be playing loud music. Additionally, the new owner is familiar with running similar establishments in Astoria. The new owner is actually a partial owner of the Grand on 30th Avenue. Now, I'm sure some of you may have heard about some of the social distancing issues that happened around the Grand. But the new owner informed us that they actually called 311 on themselves to get assistance with the social distancing problems that were occurring outside the business. And, you know, I did take a look at the mayor's guidelines with respect to social distancing, and they do state that to the extent that there are issues regarding dangerous situations to life or property, they call 911, and here they call 311. Now, the new owner affirmed that she will sign the CB1 stipulations and will work with the neighbors as well as the 114th precinct to make sure that they are good neighbors. So in light of that, we are going to, the committee voted and we are going to recommend that we approve their application for corporate change. Now, with respect to two other applicants, specifically the Last Word and Judy and Punch, these businesses are seeking to renew their licenses, and they did have also some issues with social distancing. The Last Word had 29 311 calls, and Judy and Punch had 28 311 calls relating to noise, social distancing, lack of face masks, and so forth. The committee didn't feel the need to call them, but the committee voted, and we are going to recommend that a letter be sent to those businesses just requesting that they abide by the rules and regulations set forth by the governor and the mayor's office on social distancing. Now, as to the remaining applications, the 114th precinct has reviewed all of the other applicants, and they have no issue with their approval, and the committee also recommends their approval. So at this point, I'm going to move for 4 votes. The first is going to be with respect to the committee's recommendation for denial of Hangar Astoria Bar's renewal application. Accordingly, I move for the denial of Hangar Astoria Bar's application. Will anyone second the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to the approval? If there's no opposition, the motion is going to pass unanimously. All right, thank you. Now, with respect to NYMF Bar, I moved for the approval of the corporate change in light of the affirmation provided by the new owner and the new owner's agreement to sign the stipulations. Will anyone second the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to the approval? If there's no opposition to the motion, it's going to pass unanimously. All right, thank you. Now, with respect to the last word in Junior and Punch, I move for the approval of the renewal of their liquor licenses with permission for the community, for the committee to send a letter to the businesses just requesting that they abide by the rules and regulations set forth by the governor and mayor's office on social distancing. Will anyone second the motion?
Again, I'll second it.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Is anyone opposed to the approval? If there's no opposition, it's going to pass unanimously. Thank you very much. Now, with respect to the remaining applications listed on the spreadsheet, due to the fact that there were no significant issues and in light of the committee's recommendation for approval, I move for their approval. Will anyone second the motion?
Second.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to the approval? There's no opposition. The motion is going to pass unanimously. All right. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
For all the work and the committee as well. Thank you. Land use, Elizabeth or Jerry? Elizabeth, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I had to unmute myself.
Okay.
Okay, so the item on the agenda we have for tonight for land use is, you should have received a report by email prior to the meeting, which explained the public hearing item, the Goldfish Swim School thoroughly, and also another item that we discussed at the.
She muted herself.
Liz, you're muted.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I needed to get this earplug out of my ear, and I guess I must have hit the pad on my iPhone, on my computer. Okay. So what we have to do is have a roll call vote. This is a ULURP item. It's a BSA application. And I will read just the recommendation from the committee. There were no issues that were raised, except we did ask, one member asked about making concessions for some members of the community who couldn't afford to pay the private lessons. And the gentleman said they didn't do that before, but they will take it on a case-by-case basis. And they're aware of the income levels, et cetera, in the community. So as I said, case-by-case basis. Ed, could you mute yourself, Ed?
Excuse me.
Thank you. So the recommendation from the committee was to approve the application for a PCE permit for a period of 10 years for the Goldfish Swim School. So we would entertain a motion on that and vote on it.
I'll second it.
Okay. I don't have a roll call. We need to have a roll call.
I will do it, no problem.
Okay.
I'll do attendance at the same time. Rosanna Giannis is not here. George Alexiou. But he's not here now. Okay. Daniel Alberti.
Yes, in favor of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Lorena Moore. Not here. Angie.
Yes, in favor. Thank you.
Ed Baker.
Yes.
Ed Baker, yes.
Yes.
Ann Bruno. Jerry Calagendo.
Yes.
Jean Marie DeLeva. Jean Marie, are you here? Do you vote yes?
Yes, she's voted yes.
Check again. Antonella.
Yes.
Yeoman.
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Yes.
Mackenzie.
Yes.
Dean Fevitovic.
Yes.
Evie Hanzopoulos.
Yes.
Amy Howe.
Yes.
Helen Ho. I guess Helen never got back on. Pauline Janelli? Pauline Janelli? No. Okay, Vanessa Jones Hall. Vanessa?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Rich Galerachios?
Yes.
Richard Guzami?
Yes.
Nancy Carnapole? Nancy Carnapole? Jerry Krill?
Yes.
Thank you. Hannah Lupian? Hannah?
Yes.
Jeffrey Martin?
Yes.
Tony Maloney? Eric Mouche?
Yes.
Thank you. Stella Nicolau? Stella, are you here? No. Mary O'Hara? Dina Panagoulias?
Yes.
Bob Piazza? Rosemary Poveromo? Yanni Robinson? Tom Ryan?
Yes.
Rudy Sarkisi? Is Rudy still with us? I mean, I know he's still with us, but I mean. Yeah, Dominic Stiller,
Yes.
Andre Stith. Andre? Rod Townsend.
Yes. 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 Andres, yes. I had to unmute myself.
Okay. Rod Townsend, yes.
Yes.
Judy Trilivis,
Yes.
Kathleen Warnock,
Yes.
Mitch Waxman,
Yes.
Louise Boardley,
Yes.
Iraq
Yes.
Chomsky,
Yes.
Shahnaz Hamday,
Yes.
Amin Mehdi,
Yes, please.
Juliet Bayab.
Ayabia. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, it's unanimous.
Okay, I believe it's 33. I will double check. Either way, it's unanimous. So thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. For the end of my report, I would just like to let the board know that the Land Use Committee is meeting on July 1st, the first for all of us, but to meet in July. But we have some items to become informed about for that we'll be handling in the fall and winter. I just want to wish everybody a nice summer and enjoy it. And I will talk to my committee on the 1st. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Old and new business. Does anyone have any old and new business?
I have new business.
Okay, go ahead, Abby.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to go on the record and express my deep disappointment that Nancy Silverman was not reappointed to Community Board 1. She was a very active and engaged member of the board for 6 years. She attended meetings consistently. She initiated events for the community as chair of the Parks Committee. And most importantly, she helped bring necessary processes to help us run better as a board and engage the community at large. She was outspoken and sometimes asked questions or made statements that some people didn't like or seemed abrasive, but they were never superfluous. Her questions and comments were relevant to the issues being discussed, and they brought a level of transparency, order, and seriousness to board procedures. So it was reported in the Queen's Eagle that the district manager of CB5 made disparaging and unsubstantiated comments about members of CB1 and other community boards. I find this highly improper and unprofessional, especially since this district manager has never been to a Community One board meeting, as far as I can recall, interacted with us, seen us operate, or witnessed any behaviors. I would like to know how he came to this conclusion. If anyone has concerns or grievances, they should be dealt through proper open channels, especially if the allegations affect a board member's reappointment. Quite honestly, it does not seem that there was consistent criteria applied across all candidates when reappointment was being considered for community board members this round. Given that we as a board elected Nancy to the executive board earlier this year, her peers recognize the important role she played and could play as we look to improve our board. The work she helped start should not stop. Our executive board, as well as any of us who desire, should continue to push for structure, clear definition of roles and responsibilities with the district office, and in particular the district manager, and ways to improve our engagement and outreach to the community through stronger communication strategies. We also should not feel as if our reappointment would be in jeopardy for doing so. That said, I am very happy to see the new board members and see wonderful diversity reflected in our new members. I welcome you and look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Here, here.
Sorry.
I follow up on something, Marie? I'm going to read an email that I sent to Marie and Florence today.
Excuse me, who's speaking?
Hi, Dominic Stiller.
Okay, Dominic, go ahead.
Yellow wall, window in the back. So I wrote this email today to Marie, and I think it's appropriate. I was heavily disturbed about the non-renewal of Nancy Silverman's CB1 seat. I feel that Nancy took an objective, professional approach to our decisions and our discussions. In fact, I believe that she took the most objective, professional approach to our decisions and discussions, and she encouraged full transparency for the benefit of the community. I've been reading in the local news that Nancy was accused behind closed doors of being a bully, implied to be bullying by our district manager, Florence Kay. Article is copied in the email. It does not mention any examples of inappropriate behavior, nor do any of the monthly minutes that I've reviewed since that have any instances of inappropriate behavior. My wife and I were heckled so badly by current and past board members in 2014 when we were applying for our DOT partnered bike corral. I was not a board member then, but there were no ramifications. Just an example. Furthermore, in 2016, during a meeting, the heckling of the public from the board was so egregious that I and others complained to the previous chair, Joe Reese, to have it exposed and stopped. I say, Marie, can we find time to discuss this prior to the summer recess? I would like to define behaviors that are not acceptable to our discourse and have our board document that all members and the district manager are held to the same standards. I'm copying Florence on this email, as well as other community members. I hope Nancy still has energy for public work. I encourage Nancy to reapply next year. I hope that any contention can be reviewed and eliminated. She will be strongly missed, in my opinion, and I also warmly welcome the new board members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add something? This is Katie Elman.
Yes, Katie.
I want to also welcome all the new board members. I look forward to working with you and hopefully meeting you in person sooner than later when it's safe.
Thank you.
I don't want to, Evie and Dominic spoke so well. I want to publicly thank Nancy for mentoring me when I started on the board and welcoming me as her vice chair for the Parks, Rec, and Cultural Affairs Committee. I also would like to understand, and maybe there's not time now, and this is something we can work on over the summer, how, and really just try to drive home the point that we need to have transparency. If we're all volunteers and we all care about our community, but if people are complaining about us as individuals, if this is a work situation, we would have a chance to have that information presented to us and have a chance to defend ourselves. And I feel that in this case, that was not afforded to Nancy, and I think it's a real shame.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah.
This is Rod Townsend. I'd like to add something.
Yes, Rod.
Not to pile on, I also welcome all of the new members, and I'm sorry you're having to go through this odd conversation, but I'm also glad you're hearing it. This is just a one-sentence statement. Joe, I hope you can communicate to the acting borough president that I feel that our board's autonomy has been usurped and ignored by her decision on this. And like the others, I know that Nancy's presence will be missed sorely by not only the members of the board, but the members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
I'd like to welcome the new board members. You bring a breath of fresh air to the board. And
Thank you.
And much success.
Thank you so much.
I also would like to welcome all the new board members, and I look forward to getting together with everyone when we get a chance. Say hello to my granddaughter. She wants to jump back in there again.
Hello.
She's one of 8.
God bless you.
Like
I don't.
When we get the chance to get back out there, and we'll get the things done. Glad to have you guys aboard. And just to mention something, I know Evie probably knows this already, just from a little note out of my sector in Zone 126 community programming, that we have a new executive director, Andrew Rumshendani. She was promoted to the executive director of Zone 126. And next meeting, I will have her on and hook up some with Florence so she can get to introduce herself. Thank you guys for the time.
Very
and I
good.
miss seeing you guys in person.
Okay, and this is Richard Kazami. I would again also want to thank all the new board members for coming aboard. It's great. I'm Lebanese American. We've had very few Asian Americans on this board in the past, and or from the Middle East, and I really appreciate having you guys on board. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Tom Ryan, I'd like to say something.
Who's speaking?
Tom Ryan.
Hey, Tom Ryan.
Just want to let everyone know that YouTube was very successful. I've been monitoring, and it's gone on and uninterrupted for the whole time. And I wanted to make one comment to Dino. It looks like Dino needs a shave. Dino, please. Give Michelle a hug.
Too funny.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to move on to the public session. Do we see anything in chat? I know that I sent you, Tom, a statement to be read. Have we gotten any?
Yeah, well, let me just say, I'm on a laptop, so it's a little slow here. All right, we have, let's see, nothing in Q&A in chat. The last ones were all just welcoming the new board members and everybody agreeing with each other. And let's see, the last one was from Jose. No, I'm sorry, Jay Rose at CCRB. The CCRB is still taking complaints regarding police misconduct. We also conducting presentations virtually. Lastly, we will be hosting our Queens Board meeting on July 8th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. For our information, feel free to contact Jahi, Jahi Rose, ROSE, at 917-208-9320 or via email at jrose@ccrb.nyc.gov.
Thank you, Tom. All right, I believe I also sent you a statement that needs to be read.
Yes, let me just give me 1 second to, all right.
Now, let me explain to the board, this is highly unusual, but we are not meeting in person. So tonight, Tom usually calls up members of the public to speak. Tonight, he will be reading the statements of the public, if any. So Tom has a new job.
I want to raise. All right, I'm going to read, let's see, I'm just going to read it as written. Public comment by Nancy Silverman. Welcome new board members of Community Board 1. You are the most diverse group of new appointees ever to this community board, and I want to thank council members Constantinides and Van Bramer for fulfilling their promises as VP candidates to diversify this board. This is an important step in ensuring that this CB both represents and is representative of our community. To do your best work representing our community will require that you actively participate, especially in the hard work of committees. It also requires that you get to know the bylaws of this board and the rules that guide open meeting law of the City of New York, and that you ensure these rules are followed. If they're not provided with a copy of the bylaws, please request it. To all board members, thank you for electing me to the executive board. I was committed to doing my part to make this board transparent and democratic on behalf of our community. That was my goal when I was appointed to the board, and I'm proud of the changes that came over my tenure here. Some of you liked it better back then. You should resign as board members because you are not committed to our community. You are committed to whatever power you think being a CB member brings. To board members who do the hard work of serving our community by ensuring fairness and transparency, and who get to know the issues and the action brought before the board, thank you. I hope you will reach out to the new members and mentor them. In order to serve the community, this board needs the support of staff. It requires a district manager who is competent and committed to allowing board members to do the work, not getting in their way. Pages 25 to 27 of the bylaws specify the duties of the district manager. As committee board members, it is within your role to hold staff accountable. Finally, I may no longer be a committee board member, but I am a member of this community. Our beautiful, complicated, vibrant community deserves affordable housing, bike lanes, economic justice, open space, and jobs. We deserve a community board that prioritizes transparency and fairness. Defund the police, Black Lives Matter, end of statement.
Thank you, Tom. Do we have any other public comments that we can see?
Motion to adjourn?
Just a minute.
I do have one comment. I do have one comment, Marie, if I can interrupt.
Who's interrupting? Depends.
It's Dino.
Okay.
How are you?
I can't see.
So I just wanted.
Dino is now speaking.
I just wanted to say a huge thank you. The issues with the emergency homeless shelters that were set up in the Dutch Kills area, it seems that the concerns were actually brought to City Hall. They were brought to the powers that be. And every single person that I have spoken to that actually brought those particular complaints has said that there has been absolutely no issues whatsoever. So whomever it was that actually did something and actually had conversations of the folks that are in there, everyone is just a wonderful neighbor, and there have been absolutely no issues whatsoever.
Thank you, Dina. So I'm reading Dominic. Dominic, did you have something to say? Did you want bylaws? Dominic?
Yeah, hi. I was asking if.
Yes, no problem. We'll do
Can
that.
you hear me? Can a copy of the bylaws and the open meeting law be emailed to all members of the staff? That was my question. I wrote it in the chat.
Yes, okay, we'll arrange that, or as Evie points out, they could go on the website. So I just want to welcome everybody, the new members, but also the old members. It's been a trying year for everybody. And I think that we are such a diverse group now. And it'll be wonderful to bring all our thoughts and ideas together for the betterment of the community. So thank you for joining Community Board One. Thank you for being on Community Board One. And thank you all for your input. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Maria, I see Vanessa would like to say something.
Yes.
Oh, yes, Vanessa. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead. Vanessa?
Vanessa, you're on.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Marie. I just wanted to reach out and say, you know, through these trying times that the communities of color is dealing with, this is something that's not new to us, as well as the residents of Astoria houses, Ravenswood or Queensbridge and Woodside, or just the communities of color at large. And we appreciate the support that we have received from you all. We look forward to more support from you all and understanding of what our communities have been going through. especially due to the fact that this pandemic occurred. People have lost their jobs. I know the community of Astoria houses we have lost a lot of people due to this virus. I myself have lost 49 loved ones, not all due to the virus. But this past Friday, my sister who was supposed to get a pacemaker in March, but due to the shutdown, her appointment was canceled. She had a heart attack on Friday, and now she's in a coma, and they have her children are left to make a decision. So this situation has been devastating to a lot of us. My uncle who had cancer, his funeral is on Thursday. So we've been through a lot of devastations that has been very heartbreaking and depressing to us, as well as with this virus and with everybody losing their jobs. And for it to be where we want to let it be known that our lives matter, but even the diversity of the community of color also matter. And I feel it's very important, especially now going forward. And when we open back up, and even during the summer, whatever possibilities we can make happen, that we as a community board reach out to all the communities, even if we don't hear from them, to just see how things are going, just to check and see how people are handling their lives. I've been working along with others in the community. Thank you, Evie, as well as with Queens Together with Jamie, trying to provide food and other materials about the census and even the coronavirus where they can get testing, just making sure we do wellness checks throughout the communities of just the Astoria and Long Island City. And it's just that it'd be great that we can all band together and sometimes just put away our differences of negativity and come on something, because this is bigger than what we are, and we need each other to be there for one another. And this is very important because we all are suffering. It doesn't matter what's your race or your color, your creed. But I'm just asking that everybody please band together along with us as one, because all of our lives matter and all of our quality of life matters. And if we don't make something occur, this is just going to get worse. And we need to make sure that we pass the word, especially to our youth, to make sure that they understand the seriousness of this. We have a lot of people that's not really taking this serious, not even just the young people, but older people as well, and throughout all our groups, just like you were saying earlier in the meetings, how people are not properly doing their social distancing, even as they go visit these bars and cafes. This is a serious situation, and I don't want to see it be a second wave, because we lost too many people. I lost too many people. And I can't continue to watch this kind of thing happen over and over again. And within 2 months, out of all my 57 years, I've never lost this amount of people ever. But I'm just reaching out to you all to say thank you for all the work we have all done together. Welcome to all the new members. I look forward to you coming aboard and banding together. I love the fact that we have a diversity that represents our community finally. And I say, God bless you all, and may you all be safe, and blessings and safe health to your families.
Thank you, Vanessa. Very well said. We appreciate it. Thank you. Bravo. Motion to adjourn. Anyone? Jeffrey?
Motion.
Second?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
we'll see you over the summer anyway. Okay? Enjoy the summer.